without the healthcare workforce. Indeed, the foundation of our health sovereignty is the strength and competence of the health workforce. And that includes the doctors, the nurses, midwives, pharmacists, laboratory personnel, community health workers, specialists, service delivery professionals, and many others. And this is the time I commend the dancer who said that it's not easy to be a woman. But he forgot to tell us that women are also primary health care providers, aren't we? So we should clap for the women anyway. And yes, it's not easy, but we intend to make it work. And that is why the government has placed a high priority on the training, employment, and equitable distribution of health workers across Ghana. And Minister, thank you very much for the kind work you are doing. We have authorized the recruitment of about 16,000 health workers this year. About half of them have already been given financial clearance, and the others will soon follow. Ladies and gentlemen, health is not only a sectoral priority. It is important for every individual and is central to our nations through capable institutions and supported by workforce. Our ministries of health, therefore, work closely with other ministries, regulators, the private sector, and development partners to ensure that progress remains integrated. I encourage this forum to continue in that same spirit of collaboration. I urge you to be open, innovative, practical, and work towards this one aim, which is the improved health of our people. Let us assess progress with the first forum, since the first forum, confront the remaining barriers, and agree on practical reforms, those that countries can implement efficiently and sustain over time. And I wish all of you to leave Accra resolved to turn evidence into policy. I'm very proud that we can see the results here. You know, all these people who have been so negatively impacted, and to consider that a lot of them didn't even know or still don't know where to turn, what support they need to get. And all of this work, you know, through our plan for health. We are very interested in the CHIPS compounds, you know, beginning from that level to the quadrennial hospital, and you know, trying to disengage so that we have layers of care. If I have a headache or I have I don't know, my back is hurting, I don't necessarily have to queue at a hospital that takes care of specialist needs, maybe not at the beginning, but I need to begin somewhere. And so we are very, very happy about what is happening, and we intend to advance this even further.
His arrival comes days after Foreign Affairs Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa summoned South Africa's acting High Commissioner in Accra to lodge a formal protest, treating the matter not merely as an isolated incident, but as a broader question of the safety and dignity of Ghanaians on the continent. Ghana's High Commissioner to South Africa, His Excellency Benjamin Kwashi, who accompanied Emmanuel Asamoah on his return to Accra, reaffirmed the mission's commitment to protecting Ghanaian nationals living and working in South Africa.
It has been not a very smooth journey in terms of what is happening to our brothers and sisters in South Africa. But the ministry has coordinated with its counterparts there in South Africa. A lot has gone in, a lot of negotiations have taken place, I can assure you that the situation is not completely normalized, but what we know for a fact is that they've taken into consideration what Ghana's position has been, and to ensure that our citizens don't go through what Mr. Samoa had to go through. Let me also indicate that in coming back, they ensured, the South African authorities ensured that his passing through immigration and others was very safe. It was smooth. They indicated to us that they want to again apologize to him for what happened. It was rather an unfortunate circumstance, one that they deeply regret, one that anytime we speak to them, they tell us that they don't have such undertakings with Ghana, so they feel that this shouldn't have happened in the first place.
For Emmanuel Asamoah, today's homecoming marks not just a personal relief, but a moment that has placed the rights and dignity of Ghanaians on the continent firmly in the spotlight.
Honorable Minister Samuel Kujeto Ablakwa, His Excellency High Commissioner of South Africa. Omu yetuka be hwehwe be bia mu bia be fa me ko. If he said that, so my bomb who by hands, a brown would be a bed.
Coordinating Director for Political and Economic Affairs of the Ministry, Ambassador Harold Adlai Ajiman, stressed that engagement with South African authorities will continue until Ghanaian nationals are adequately protected.
I want to reiterate the point that has been made by the Minister on behalf of government that the actions that has been undertaken by the South African nationals is one that is distressing for us, because as Africans, we know that this continent is committed to ensure that it's an open space, and we don't expect such treatment against African nationals. And so it was in that context that the minister spoke to his counterpart, summoned the acting High Commissioner for South Africa, and also indicated publicly government's great concern about the actions that have been undertaken. We will continue to rely on the assurances that the South African government has given that they would stem this activity by their nationals, which can be threatening to the relations with other African countries.
The ministry's swift response to Emmanuel Asamoah's ordeal signals a broader commitment that no Ghanaian abroad will face harassment and intimidation without the full weight of the state standing behind them.
We are here to affirm a political responsibility to defend truth, protect our democratic gains, and ensure that propaganda does not distort the will of the Ghanaian people. Let me state this clearly from the outset. The new Patriotic Party has once again activated its well-known machinery of misinformation, half-baked truth, and calculated propaganda. To us, this is not new. It is a deliberate political strategy, one that seeks to exploit silence, manipulate public perception, and rewrite recent history in their favor, after what can be described as a catastrophic record in government. In contrast, claims of a 44 billion loss being circulated by the MPP and unsubstantiated and pure propaganda aimed at undermining the progress of the Bank of Ghana. This is not mere politics. This is coordinated attempt to erode public trust. Again, why this platform matters. In a democracy, elections are not won by silence. They are won by credibility, trust, and constant engagement. The NDC government has, within just 17 months in office, taken decisive steps to stabilize the economy, restore investor confidence, and implement people-centered policies. But governance alone is not enough. Communication is governance. We commend the efforts of the Minister for Government Communication through the Accounting to the People series. However, political misinformation requires a political response. Firm, direct, and unapologetic. That is why setting the record straight is back. Let this serve as both a notice and a warning. The NDC is not afraid of criticisms. In fact, we welcome constructive scrutiny. But we will not tolerate deliberate falsehoods, character assassination, and coordinated propaganda. Every lie will be confronted with facts. Every distortion will be corrected with evidence. We are committed to ensure that the Ghanaian voter is informed, not misled.
And so, I was saying, yes, to the future. And yet, the Yantanase and Ma Assembly Siansa. We share Ghana, send the economy in the Sikono, and ma your consumption air costro. You buy na consumption in number 3,500 megawatts. And then we know can say you 1,300 megawatts. If we say more investment about room, into the demand for electricity is increasing. Into I was say the generation be account. Send a baya redundancy, near brofo friend redundancy. Apart from that, say ye ne doswa. Na ye dibiko Burkina ne Togo, omu na omu hiya kanya, na omu chiayeka. It will bring foreign exchange into the country. Enti ye ne finance ne energy. Omo ye design. Ye beye 1,200 megawatts gas-fired electricity generating plant. Na nyamiadom afie ameno kasei ye de asobe bofom na sai dwuma na hyase na ehu hia so se ye be ye sai dwuma no na ye de 1,200 megawatts aka ho because ye bae no na abaya efi akonya so koe no omo ne omo a omo tu frangu ni na omo ne omo akon I just say, Ebinum po oma paki omunyomo efigana akotra Côte d'Ivoire. Enti ye baye ene ese debi. Ya nkasa ye ntimi nye. Ye nyi efidi a ye de ko epomu edrele ko form ekotu frango no ba. Enti gise we mo beboaye na ye timi ye. Enti eja after January February busano ye tu kwan eko abrochre be 3 times. Ena eja me ko pro mu kakra me so enya hwe aba foforo aba entimu de bibia esibia munja maneka.
Last year, the president also launched the Ghana Medical Trust Fund, popularly known as Mahama Cares, to support our citizens living with chronic and expensive illnesses. The fund is already supporting investments in treatment capacity, equipment, specialist care, and the training of highly skilled personnel. So we need to find ways to retain them here. Distinguished guests, such policy must be felt by the citizens. At the same time, it cannot succeed without the healthcare workforce. Indeed, the foundation of our health sovereignty is the strength and competence of the health workforce. And that includes the doctors, the nurses, midwives, pharmacists, laboratory personnel, community health workers, specialists, service delivery professionals, and many others. And this is the time I commend the dancer who said that it's not easy to be a woman. But he forgot to tell us that women are also primary health care providers, aren't we? So we should clap for the women anyway. And yes, it's not easy, but we intend to make it work. And that is why the government has placed a high priority on the training, employment, and equitable distribution of health workers across Ghana. And Minister, thank you very much for the kind work you are doing. We have authorized the recruitment of about 16,000 health workers this year. About half of them have already been given financial clearance, and the others will soon follow. Ladies and gentlemen, health is not only a sectoral priority. It is important for every individual and is central to our nations through capable institutions and supported by workforce. Our ministries of health, therefore, work closely with other ministries, regulators, the private sector, and development partners to ensure that progress remains integrated. I encourage this forum to continue in that same spirit of collaboration. I urge you to be open, innovative, practical, and work towards this one aim, which is the improved health of our people. Let us assess progress with the first forum, since the first forum, confront the remaining barriers, and agree on practical reforms, those that countries can implement efficiently and sustain over time. And I wish all of you to leave Accra resolved to turn evidence into policy, then into investment, and finally into measurable positive.
The Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer. He has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Well, thank you very much for joining us here from the studios of Pan-African Television. Welcome you to today's edition of the Mother Award talk shows Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live on TV, Pan-African Television, across the continent. Many African countries we are tuning live to this program as we speak. We are also live on social media. Look for the page Pan-African Television on Facebook and YouTube. Just type Pan-African Television, you get to watch us live. And whilst you're watching us on social media, you can share a comment or to use a comment section. And if we have time, we'll go through as many as we can. We are live on Radio Gold, and also live on many other affiliate radio stations across the country. I am Sena Nombo. Now this morning, we are discussing an article that was penned by no other person than the Executive Secretary to the President. Now, I will just read a portion of the concluding remarks. Before the conclusion, the heading is a time for reflection, not positioning. Dr. Callistus Mahama says there will be a time inevitably for leadership contests, for ideas to be tested, for ambition to find its proper expression. That time will come through the party structures and the rhythms of the democratic process. But this is not that time. This is a time for quiet discipline, for reflection, for work that is often unglamorous but essential, and for an understanding that the legitimacy of tomorrow's leadership will be built on the integrity of today's service. Now, anybody monitoring the space will see some form of jostling, overt, covert, by persons who want to lead, who want to lead the NDC into the 2020 elections and replace President John Dramani Mahama. Well, we'll be discussing that from the perspective of Dr. Callistus Mahama this morning. And then we'll also move on to the discussion of the issue of xenophobia that we have been discussing for some time now. Because of the development from the Foreign Affairs Ministry, our Foreign Affairs Ministry has written to the African Union Commission, and they're asking for a few things. They're asking for the inscription of this matter on the agenda of the 8th mid-year coordination meeting of the African Union in accordance with the rules of procedure. The second thing they're asking for is the strengthening of African Union monitoring mechanisms to support member states in upholding their obligations under the Constitutive Act of the African Union and African Charter on Human and People's Rights. They are further asking for the establishment of fact-finding mission to examine the underlying causes of xenophobic violence in South Africa and to recommend appropriate remedial interventions to the African Union. Well, if you've been monitoring South Africa for some time, you're realizing that there are the voices that have typically spoken against these acts have started coming up. A lot of attention is being drawn to, for example, an opposition party like the EFF, which has constantly spoken against the issue of xenophobia. We've also heard from the president himself, but we are asking, it is being asked on our behalf, that this be on the agenda of the African Union when they do their mid-year meeting. That's the one that's attended by the heads of states. Well, then we'll conclude with the issue of the Bank of Ghana. Well, we are hearing the word that is being used is that if you look at the financials of the Bank of Ghana, you see policy insolvency. The minority of the opinion that the loss suffered will make it difficult for the bank to perform its role as efficient as it's supposed to. We'll conclude with that today on the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji And Alhaji. Like I said, your views are very, very important. Now, this morning, we're joined by Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is General Secretary of the Socialist Movement of Ghana. I haven't seen him in a while. It's nice to see him this morning. Nino Hansenoti has joined us for the first time 2 weeks in a row. He's free, so we've managed to pull him here twice in a row. And it's nice to see Solomon Owusu, who is the Director of Communications of the United Party. And we're joined also, I think this is the second time he's joining us on our panel here on Alhaji And Alhaji. Member of Parliament for END Abdul Fattah Al-Hassan joins us to complete our panel for today. So that's our panel of discussing the issues that we've tabled. Like I said, you're an important part of the show, so do share your thoughts with us. Well, let's start the discussion off with the article that's penned by the Executive Secretary to the President, Dr. Callistus Mahama. And I would like to start from the backyard of the National Democratic Congress and start with the Member of Parliament for you. Good morning once again.
Good morning, good morning to my co-panelists, and very good morning to our senior comrades, Kwesi Pratt. Good morning to the good people of Yendi. Well, we've all seen the article, we've read the article, and I think the article is really bringing out things that were already beneath the surface. We've all been talking about it, and Sena, trust me, whoever tells you that this thing is not manifesting in our governance today is not rearing its ugly head, the person is not being truthful. As for me, I ask myself, you see, sometimes when you look at the history, almost at every stage you find that, especially in our party, you find that right from even the time of the late Rollins, you realize that any time they are picking running mates, they try to look at succession. It's important. As by the time James was considering his first running mate after the demise of Pakusi Amy Saata, I was also looking at a situation where he would at least pick somebody that would have the appetite to succeed him. So when you do that, to me, this is my personal opinion. To me, you do that, it helps a lot and it brings some tensions down. But when you pick somebody who at the end will not have the appetite to contest, it opens the door to all manner of things. Because in governance, focus is important, commitment is important. And when individuals are put in charge of the various sectors of the economy, and they have divided attention as he has rightly brought out, trust me, to affect the way governance goes. When we started, I think there was this issue of, oh, Jay will go for another term, a third term, and those things. So at that time, people were not too sure. So even those with the interest kind of subdued the manifestation of that interest to a large extent. And we're all hoping to see what the direction would be. But constitutionally, unfortunately, JM does not have the mandate, again, per our constitution, to continue. So it kind of opens it up to just anybody, to those with the interest. Coincidentally, it so happens that those with the interest are the same people who are currently managing the affairs of governance. And so you ask yourself whether indeed, as we speak today, they are pursuing the interest of the party, and for that matter maybe the government, or they are pursuing their individual interest. And added to this is the ongoing polls that we see every now and then. Trust me, if we didn't have those polls, things would have been a bit okay. But unfortunately, we don't have control over these polls. Musa Nako is on his own. You can't even go and tell him you should stop making this poll because it's creating a lot of tension in your party. No, he does his own work. And then day out, this one is leading. Then tomorrow the other person is leading. Then it makes people become a little jittery. And these are the same people who are running the government. And so they will have to, and you see, politics timing is very important. And calculation is important. And so if you ask me, like the article rightly said, that even though I have the interest, like my colleagues do have the same interest, I should wait until such time that the whistle is blown. Then I can activate that interest. Politically, that will be unwise. It will be politically suicidal for anybody, unless you don't mean to fulfill your interest. And so it is, this article or whatever you say cannot in any way quell or kind of reduce that manifestation. People will just have to be mindful that they don't allow it to conflict with the role they perform. But it can never be taken away from the daily affairs or the way they run their affairs. Especially so when we have a vice president who does not seem to be showing that interest in the contest. Under the normal course of things, it would have been just a seamless exercise of the vice succeeding the president. But unfortunately, we have a situation where that does not seem to be the case, because the vice doesn't seem, Her Excellency doesn't seem to have that huge appetite for it. And looking at certain factors, we don't know how her decision will finally be, or what her decision will finally be. But politically, from the look of things, it doesn't show that she has that appetite. And so politicians are generous, smart people, and we take advantage of situations. And so you cannot tell me that this is an advantage, an opportunity, I should not take advantage of it. Yes, in doing that, like I said before, I have to be mindful that it doesn't affect the way I run my affairs. And so now we are in a very difficult situation. And even more so when we have, sometimes it is the party structure is what usually whips people in line. The party structure is what whips people in line. But where you even have the party leadership, the one at the topmost leadership of the party chairman, also having the same interest, then it makes it even more precarious. You understand? Now, who whips who in line? You understand? Because the administration of the party is important, especially when you are in governance. Chances are people will always gravitate towards the government machinery. And because of the powerful nature of their offices, they want to arrogate to themselves powers that, if not checked by the party, can derail the gains being made. So there has to be a machinery somewhere, somehow. That is different from the government structure, and that can really, really control the system. And that structure cannot be any other structure than the party system. Today, the chairman cannot do that, cannot seem to exercise that control and bring people to order, because you cannot be a player and a referee at the same time. And so we are in a complete fix. And anybody who has the party at heart would be worried, because we are not at a situation where you look at somebody and then you think that the person can call someone to order. You understand? There's no such person today as I see it. So it is free for all. The game is open. And the more you sit down to respect some of these instructions, the more difficult you make your own work become. Because, like I said, timing is key. And you don't allow somebody in a political race to go miles ahead of you before you start to catch up. You don't play catch-up game. So I remember when MPP had when they were having their contest in some of the platforms that I had, I was always telling them that we don't want to go so much into their affairs, because we also hope that when they finish, they will not meddle so much in our affairs. But unfortunately, it's not like that. It's not like that, especially when you are in government. So now we are actually, I have read this piece. It's that's the opinion we all share. That is the ideal situation. Unfortunately, we cannot be going for that ideal situation today, because it's a political contest. It would have been better if we had a vice president who had the appetite to take it over from the sitting president. That would have all been eager to have. Look, even when we had the situation where we had a vice president who was committed, like at the time of Puff Mills and Rawlings, where everybody saw that it was going to be a seamless transfer of power from Rawlings to Mills. But for the kind of character we had in Rawlings, we're still going to have serious issues with Mills succeeding Rawlings. And we had to take the strong character of Rawlings to keep that status not degenerating into serious issues. You understand? Today, we do not have that strong character, because JM wants to play the neutral role, as it were, and want to focus on delivering on his mandate as the elected president of the republic. Rawlings didn't care who. Rawlings wanted to make sure that his wish carried the day. We don't have the same today. So it made the situation a bit okay during the time of that transition. But today, like I said before, if you look at it, there's no one controlling who can control this. And almost everything, look, when ministers are going astray, who calls them to order? It is not the president, it is not the vice president, it's the chief of staff. Well, he's the one they administratively report to. When political actors, when people who ascribe or subscribe to the ideals of the party NDC go astray or need to be brought to book or need to be brought in order, who has to do that? Is the chairman. So these are two strong pillars, both at the level of governance and at the level of party administration. These are people who could have held the pendulum so that it doesn't sway this way or that way. Unfortunately, both happen to have interest in this. And so at both ends, there's nobody actually controlling anything. And any attempt to want to even control someone can even be seen to be something different. It can be seen differently. So it's a big issue we have at hand. A very big issue. And if not properly managed, it can cause us a lot of challenges, regardless of the gains we are making. Governance wise, trust me, we are doing very well. We may not be perfect, but we are doing very well. And I have the firmest belief, and that is what we have always been trumpeting, that the success or otherwise of this administration will tell where the next electoral fortune goes. And so we have always said that. And see, you can only say that as a backbencher like myself. So I would say that let's focus on building this success story first, and that will tell where the next election outcome will be. But that is what I can say as a backbencher. I call myself that way. But as an active participant, as any of the names that have come up so far for the leadership of the party, you don't expect them to sit idle and wait till that time that the success story is complete. Even our party constitution does not say that we should wait till 4 years before we elect the next flag bearer. It doesn't say so. You understand? And so even the call for us to concentrate on building or governing for now will also have to be looked at in the eye of the constitution of the party. When do we have to elect our flag bearer? And at that time, will we have finished with our governance? No. Because this regime has run for 4 years. After the second year, we have to look at electing our flag bearer. At worst, or at most, the third year, at the early beginning of the third year. Because when you are in government, at least you usually 1 year to election, you should have had your flag bearer. But do you know that electing a flag bearer is not just an event? It's a process. It has to have started from somewhere. And the least you can do to yourself, or the worst thing you can do to yourself as an aspirant, is to want to wait till that time is ripe for you to campaign. That time, like I said, you'll be doing catch up. Mm-hmm. So I don't so much blame these actors, those whose names have come up. What I do have problem with, and like he rightly said, is when in the course of your discharge or the discharge of your duty as a minister, or if you like as a chief of staff, or if you like as a party chairman, you allow your personal interest to outweigh the overall goal we all have today, which we have all, the president has subscribed to the oath of office to undertake. So they should be focused on supporting His Excellency the President of the Republic and discharging his mandate. When we do that and do that very well, trust me, sometimes I don't believe that it is only when you are the president that you can even effect the change you want to effect. as far as political governance is concerned. No. If you can do that in so many ways. Today as we speak, just yesterday we heard that the candidate, the NPP presidential candidate for the 2028 election appointed almost all 4 of his co-contenders to chair the various policy committees. That is a way you can affect political governance. And so this one is in charge of job and welfare, or if you like, this one is in charge of rules, this one is in charge of education. So you are still doing what you would have done if you were the elected president or the elected candidate of the party, but in another fashion. At the end of the day, one person has to lead the party. But let it not be said that once this one gets, then it is doomed for me. It is only when you see this contest in that light that there will be a do or die affair. It is an NDC agenda. Whoever wins will be winning from the stock of the NDC and will need the NDC machinery, including those who would have contested him to carry out that mandate. And the earlier we all saw it that way, the better for us. If we take our eyes off, for governance can be very slippery. And sometimes even our colleagues keep reminding us that we should look at their performance in 2017 when they took over. And I don't begrudge them for that. 2017, the indicators were also looking positive. You understand? Things were looking positive. Sometimes the more things begin to look good when you are a party in government, especially your first year, the more complacent you become. And you think things are on autopilot. You don't think that your actions can derail those gains. And so let's listen to the wise wisdom from our colleagues that sometimes elections are lost not because of the work of your opponent, but because of your own excesses. And so we can easily, it is not far-fetched, we can easily derail all the gains we have made so far if we do not internally conduct ourselves. And that is the highlight of this write-up. And so it's an appeal. These are the people we all look up to in the party. Almost all the names that have come. They are our godfathers in the party. They are the people who should lead us as the young ones to emulate them. If today we see that rather than what we think of them, their personal interests are what drive everything and not the interests of the party, trust me, they will lose all the respect we also have for them. Because in fact, sometimes we follow them without even knowing their family backgrounds, without even knowing where they come from. But we follow them because of the name NDC. And so they should be reminded that NDC is first and foremost before whoever they are comes next. And so the more their actions begin to damage this entity called NDC, the more we'll also take very serious positions against them. Because in the end, the ultimate goal is not only to govern well, but to have a renewed mandate come 2028 general elections.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable. And I realize the former MP started smiling when you talked about timing in politics. Anyway, this is Dr. Kalisus Mahama speaking to the issue of ambition clashing with the objectives of the government. It is the pursuit of personal ambition when it begins to compete with the demands of governance creates a quiet erosion of performance, discipline, and ultimately trust. It must be said plainly, those who cannot subordinate ambition to duty risk doing injustice to both. And where that tension becomes irreconcilable, there is honor, not weakness, in stepping aside. Me.
Sena, good morning. to our viewers and our listeners. It's always a pleasure coming to Pan-African TV and Alhaji And Alhaji. Sena, the only capital that any politician has is ambition. If you are a politician or you aspire to be a leader in a community or society and you don't have ambition, you can't put yourself out there for anybody to elect you, select you, or even follow you and put you in a position that you want to be in. So having ambition in itself is not a bad thing. It's a very, very, very good thing. If I didn't have the ambition of serving the people of Tema Central, I wouldn't have ended up being their member of parliament. I had that ambition from maybe age 9 or 10 when I started following Ibrahim Oseidu, who became our first MP. And over the years, Natoshi came in, Kofi Brako, myself, and today we have Honorable Charles Forson. So having ambition is not a bad thing. But, you know, like they say in Akan, I say, it has to be measured. You have to measure yourself. Measure yourself and ask yourself whether you have what it takes to wear the shoes that you actually want to wear. It is not wrong having ambition, just as I've said. And all the gentlemen and maybe potentially ladies or lady that have put themselves out there to be president of Ghana on the ticket of the NDC must measure themselves. And I'm using the measure in quotes. And ask themselves whether they have what it takes to run this state called Ghana. Number one. They have what it takes to rally their party and its members to follow them and give them the mandate. Number two. And even extend it to the broader African context and the global affairs of this world, whether they have what it takes to participate in it. You have a party like the NDC, although I'm a member of the New Patriotic Party. The NDC is a ruling government of Ghana today, has been in opposition for 8 years on 2 occasions, so about 16 years or 30, whatever, with a deep, I would say, contribution to Ghana's democracy that we find today. It's a party that must survive for our democracy to continue. Because if you have a situation where you have a lopsided one-party state, a de facto one-party state, you're in a one-party democracy, it might not augur well for our democracy as a people. So we don't wish them bad. We wish them well. But that internal mechanism must be managed very, very, very well. And it has to start from the very, very top. The party chairman of the NDC has been going on a thank you tour for almost a year. Thank you tour for 1 year. I mean, it's obvious the thank you tour is a disguised campaign. 1 whole year. He's been on a thank you tour. The chairman of the party. Then what time does the chairman have to run the party's affairs? Is he actually running the party's affairs? Does he make time to run the party's affairs? He's on a thank you tour. You cannot stop him from going to thank his people. But Sena, if you have a 4-year mandate and you spend 18 months out of it going on a thank you, then the next, I mean, when are you ending and when are you campaigning for the next election? So he's on a campaign tour. And he triggered it. Right after John Mahama was sworn in. You have the Chief of Staff of the State of Ghana also nursing his ambition. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's work to be done for the state. Where I sit, I cannot say that his early morning joggings has affected the running of the state. I can't say so. So we are assuming that it's not affecting the running of the state. But it's been going on early morning joggings and too many of them. There are other contenders. Atu Forson, Finance Minister, I wouldn't even say they are contenders because none of them has come out that they really want to contest. It is speculation at this stage. But obviously, they say there's no smoke without fire. If he's not interested, he should let the world know, I'm not interested. But not when the people are saying you are interested and you are sitting aloof. We cannot assume that you're not interested. So if you're not interested, say I'm not interested. And many others. But on a more serious note, we need to separate the politics from the governance of the state. And I want the NDC to take you from Kufuor. When Kufuor in 2008 was about to exit, and we had about 17 leaders in the New Patriotic Party trying to vie for the leadership of the party as presidential candidates, he said everybody should put their jobs down and go and follow your ambition. Nothing stops His Excellency the President John Mahama, who has a legacy to protect. I'm telling the gentlemen and ladies and young men and old women in the NDC who want to become presidential candidates and are serving in his government to put their tools down for other people who are not so ambitious at this stage to work with him, and then let them go and pursue their ambition. Because the people of Ghana are not just NDC members. They're MPP members, CPP members, PNC members, and people who are not even apolitical people. And Ghana must be governed. We cannot spend precious time and resources and effort that should have gone to governing the state on partisan politics. That should be a separate thing, and that should be done. And therefore, if the president thinks that his men and women that he has appointed are not focusing on their portfolios, he should give them the boot, show them the door, and change them. When I saw the article from Callistus, the executive secretary to the president, it's the president that is speaking. He's the chairman of the president. In our setting, the chief doesn't come out to speak. It's the chairman that goes out to speak. It is the president that is speaking. But he should go beyond speaking and crack the whip, because he has a legacy to leave. Nobody will come and say that, oh, and it was the chairman was running around and that's why the government failed. They will say it is the John Mahama government that has failed. So the president must sit up and do the needful. For us in the MPP, if NDC doesn't even bring a candidate, we will thank them. Because we are poised for power. Just yesterday, we listed all our, I would say, teams to prepare to work hard and make sure that His Excellency Dr. Bawumia gets the nod from the people of Ghana. So, NDC, we wish you well. But get your homework and put your acts together well, because it's not going to be an easy fight. I would have loved that the chairman at this stage would have been the father of the house, and not necessarily even be part of the process. Like he rightly said, a referee and a player should be the father of the house and manage the process so that the party doesn't disintegrate after an internal election. Because sometimes the disintegration is not obvious for everybody to see, but it is subtle. It's in there. You call people to come and work and people rescind. Oh, I'll come tomorrow, we'll do that tomorrow, blah, 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 and nothing happens. Just as you also said, take you from the MPP. Today, all our candidates, or candidates that contested His Excellency Dr. Bawumia, are now back working with us, or working with the Bawumia team, or working with Dr. Bawumia to make sure that we win power in 2028. And I know that, inshallah, 2028, MPP will be smiling back to the Jubilee House. On that note, Sena, I hand it back over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I go to Solomon also, this is Kamal Dokurugo Ibrahim, who says, I'm not sure what the article by Dr. Mahama seeks to achieve for the NDC as a party by the publicity it's been given. Even if the presidency is worried about what's going on in terms of individuals' ambition, what prevents the party leadership, including the president, from seeking to address this in private instead of seeking to do so in the public domain? For instance, what does the constitution of the NDC say about the selection of a candidate to lead the party? As for the important question as to when should interested candidates start campaigning, the simple answer is to start campaigning as soon as possible. The wise saying that the early bird catches the worm holds true for presidential ambition in partisan politics, whether in internal leadership contests or between parties. Based on the above, I think the article isn't going to achieve its objective and risk doing more harm than good to the party if the presidency isn't careful. So,
Mr. Nombo, good morning.
Good morning.
And welcome back to town, Mr. Pratt. When you are going, you put us in your suitcase so that we go. To my brother, whom I don't envy at all, being an MP in this country is difficult to. You receive text messages, 1,999, I need this, I want this. Not even greetings. Good morning to our brother, Ninoy. Sena, let me say that the article by the Executive Secretary to the President is a step in the right direction. It's an observation that is very common in the circles. And I also agree with Ninoy that it is President Mahama that is speaking and not Callisto's talking to us. I see it from the angle that the President is creating the platform to maybe engage in a major reshuffle. Because somewhere along the line, he tells us that there is honor in what? Resigning.
Stepping aside.
Stepping aside. It's not a weakness. So the President is setting up the stage. If I want to make any sense, and if I want to link the Executive Secretary, his actions and inactions to the President, then it means the President is setting up the stage for a reshuffle where he can even sack some of the members. And I believe he has to sack some of them. Some of them are not performing. Not just at the ministerial level, where a lot of the CEOs, you must enter in and clean the system. Because you see, the truth of the matter is that what you have voted for as a president, it is your name. When there is power cut or there is doom, so do we mention the name of John Abdullah Jinapo? It's not John Mahama Wakano. When there is no water, it is John Mahama. So it means at the end of the day, it is your name that will be mentioned when there is an achievement, and when the economy is not performing well, it is your name. So to that extent, you have only one mandate. Your mandate is to make sure that at all material time, the people that are in positions are people that can help you achieve what is enshrined in our Constitution and Article 36. That the President of the land is supposed to make sure that all of us, our lives are improved. So I see it in that line. He talks of discipline. Now people are not disciplined. You know it, people are campaigning. Some are either walking and dancing, some are either touring, some are either commissioning. It is part of the process. There is nothing wrong with anybody having an ambition that I want to succeed or I want to become the president. But you cannot do that at the expense of development of the economy. So if you want to embark on that journey, I think the honorable thing is that you resign and then go and pursue that. But you cannot be in the government and be having divided attention. In one breath you are looking at becoming a flag bearer, in another breath you say you are serving the country. Already one assignment is not easy. How much more combining the two? So for me, the party must say, but what is my problem as a united party? If they will behave in this manner to advantages, why don't you want to come to power? Sena, you think we are spectators? We are seriously also fighting to form the next government of the day. The only reason why I will discuss this subject matter is that as we speak, it is you and our tax revenue that they are using to run this country. And to the extent that we are giving them our tax revenue to manage and manage it well, any divided attention will send our tax revenue into waste and we will not make or achieve anything out of that. I will not discuss this topic, it's their own matter. However, the NDC itself under Article 55 becomes a public institution. So what also affects them affects all of us. But you see, it tells me that we do not learn from our history. Political parties do not learn. That is also not to say that the mere fact that you elected your candidate way ahead of time places you in any advantageous position. So that it does not do anything. Look, you can elect your candidate 10 years ahead. If the people don't like the person, so that is it. And this is our own history. I mean, in 2012, what time did they elect their flag bearer? It was some 3 months to the elections. I mean, Professor Mills, may so rest in peace, died somewhere the 22nd or 24th of July. I mean, somewhere August or so, September. Then they brought in John Mahama, and he won convincingly. By that time, the NPP had elected Nana Akufo-Addo 2 years ahead of time. It didn't end well. The NPP believed in this whole philosophy of electing a flag bearer ahead of time, hence adopting what you call the top-down approach. They brought in Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He was elected on the 31st of January 2026. What has been his impact ever since he was elected? Is it? He's just indoors. There is nothing happening. Because at this material time, what are you going to say? Now you see, because of that singular act of mistake that we all spoke about, that it was never going to be in their interest to do a top-down approach. Now they have hurriedly put up a committee. Now, how can you put up a committee when you are now going to elect your national executives? So by the time you go and elect your national chairman, you already have a committee in place. So you are rather putting the cart before the horse. What would the national chairman then be doing? You are not going to start from scratch various polling station executives, but you have already started formed your various committees. It is because of the singular misstep, the mistake that they made. They have realized that it was a genuine mistake, because electing your candidate so early does not advantage you in any way. How is that going to erase from the minds of the people that you have dug a hole at reach? How is the committee and the election of your flag bearer going to erase from the minds of the people that indeed Kenofurata, who was the finance minister of this country, has run away to the United States? How is it going to erase from the people's minds that numerous corruption charges are there, that this administration must look into it? So it does not do anybody anything. Now, NDC as a political party, you know, the way they started their own politics. Because Chairman Rawlings went unopposed in 1992. In 1996, he was retained as an unopposed candidate. Professor Mills, it was a declaration, more or less an unopposed situation. So really, the first time the party itself engaged in any competitive elections was in the election of 2002, when Professor Kosibotwe and Professor Mills had a one-on-one, what do you call it, race. Then you come to the 2004, I mean, competitive. But when John Mahama came in, it became more or less that one-sided activity. So it means that the party itself in the past, succession plan has not been managed in a manner that will prevent any chaotic situation within the party. And for me, that is the cue that political parties must learn. It also happened to the MPP. I mean, the succession plan between D.A. Kufuor and Nana Akufo-Addo wasn't the best. You remember the kind of chaotic situation that happened in the party. At a point, a party that really wanted to retain power, 17 people wanted to succeed. the then president recently. Look at what happened. It's the reason why some of us even are in the United Party. So the NDC must be the last party not to learn anything from it. Because you see, whether you like it or not, in 2024, in 2028, the questions that we asked in 2024 will be brought back. The questions we took to election 2024, make no mistake, don't let anybody delude and deceive himself that because it is NDC that is in power, we are going to stop asking what you did in terms of galamsey, what you did in terms of employment creation, how you were able to deal with issues of corruption, and so on and so forth. That one we will ask it. So then draws in the relevance of the opinion that has been shared by Dr. Callistus Mahama, which some of us believe that it is President Mahama actually speaking. That what would you have gotten? And that is why he posed that simple question. That the question before you and I is not who leads the NDC. He is asking his colleague NDC members that the question is not about who leads the NDC, but the question is how well you would have utilized the very power that you are thinking of in the future to better the loss of the people of this country. Wouldn't that even put you miles ahead of your other candidates? Because at the end of the day, it's about bread and butter. We have been discussing issues of people dying without beds. Is that not the case? Charles Mbis's case. They just released the report. Then in 2028, we go back to the people of this country. The United Party will be asking the NDC that after that incident, how well did the NDC government led by John Mahama able to deal with such issues in terms of improving our healthcare delivery? The answer must be found. At that time, it would not matter whether it is Sena Nombo or Jofa, who is what? The presidential candidate. It will be about your delivery. What is power without control? We gave you the power. What did you do with it? So why must we retain you again? That's the question that people have been asking the MPP that, but you just left power about 13 months ago. Why do you want to come back? Because what we gave you, what did you do with it? That is the only formula. If anybody is deceiving the NDC or this administration that there is any other formula apart from managing the economy well, then they must be living in a fool's paradise. Because the Ghanaian is wide awake. Sena, it is not looking all good. The youth are in their homes, in their tens of thousands, not having jobs to do. So once again, you have to convince them. And these are empirical matters. How many jobs were you able to create? And you have to show it with facts and figures. So that your internal bickering, how would it help us? That is why you need to work together. But like Nino was saying, if you have a situation where the national chairman is involved, is allegedly involved, if you have a situation where the chief of staff is also allegedly involved, if you have a situation where the finance minister is allegedly involved, if you have a situation where the education minister is allegedly involved, then where are we heading to? The only person probably I have not heard actively partaking in all this is the vice president. But then this is all history would have meant that they would settle on the vice president. I don't know what the situation is, because from their history, Gary Rawlings gave the pass to John Evans Atamils. John Evans Atamils gave the pass to
you say give.
John Evans not give. Whether he was there or not, but because he exited the scene, he enabled John Mahama not to go through any competition in the first instance. But he was the vice president. So if I were in the office of the vice president, I would also be making the case that why not me? But interestingly, she is the one that is not coming out clearly as the one that is in the pole position to ask it to succeed. This current president, I think is a good trait, in all fairness, that you want to serve your boss in all humility, with all your heart, so that whatever achievement accrues to the president, because mind you, I keep saying that it is one ticket. The president and the vice president. Whatever President Mahama is doing today, I do not expect Professor Jenana Opokwat as the vice president tomorrow to come and do what Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia did. That, oh, I was the vice president, I was a mate. No! If you are being made a mate today, speak out, our cabinet, speak out and let us know that your views are not being considered. Not to come and tell us. For me, it was the greatest height of what? Of gratefulness, as I was exhibited by Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. That you are with me as my boss, but I don't know that I'm not even treating you well. So on that score, it is better the president cracks the whip, if indeed he also wants to save his legacy. If he sees anybody as not kowtowing or as not playing according to the game plan, he must be man enough and sack. I don't see what is so difficult about giving a job to someone and taking back your job. This why is it too much difficult? Ah, my goodness. Make me a president for 1 month. You see how I'll clean the system. I gave you a job to do. You are not doing it. Look at the number of MPs who are there who are not having any job to do over there apart from going to parliament. Jofa, have you been given any appointment?
That's the job. That's my job.
What one apart from Look, there are a lot of MPs who qualify to be minister. After all, to be an MP means you can be a minister. So if someone has gotten that opportunity to be a minister and his interest will not be to develop or help the president to achieve his aims and ambitions, and then you have other MPs who are ready to work, why, Mr. President, must you be entertaining them at post? The NDC itself, they have a beautiful song. I don't like anything about them apart from that song. That is the only thing I like about them. From victory, you know that song? It freaks me. But go and listen to the words in that song. They say, arise, arise, you people of Ghana. Towards what? A secure future. Development is what? Your goal. Development is your... Or they sing it in vain. They don't understand the words. If indeed development is your goal, then you must at all material time help the person who is the president. The people of this country has been so charitable to you. They have helped you. They have honored you by giving you an emphatic victory in election 2024. They have given you an overwhelming majority in parliament. What are you using this to correct the wrongs or right the wrong that is in the system? That is what me, as not a member of the NDC, is expecting from the John Mahama administration. So if you have the executive secretary to the president talking about too early indiscipline, that is a cause of concern that we must not take it lightly. And so I would be rounding up by saying that the ball is in their court. As for us, 2028, we will fight them. As my brother said, inshallah, they are winning. I don't know how they are winning. Oh, as for winning, people are always winning in their rooms. But when the results start trickling in, then we will see who is winning. But I want to admonish the people of this country that in election 2028, the question that will be for determination and the reason why you must vote for a particular political party or candidate must only be one reason: how well did they serve you, and how well do the incoming parties intend to serve you? Because we, the United Party, has never been in power, so you cannot be evaluating it based on our governance style. But then we would have presented you with the great transformational plan which calls for an enterprise economy, dealing with the myriads of problems we have in this country. But these two political parties, the MPP and NDC, you have a lot of questions to answer. For instance, you must be asking the MPP, how come Kedoforata has run away from this country? And you ask the NDC what they did with that power. The order that it promises, Operation what? Recover, not some loot, all loot. We know we have been looted. These are issues that Callistus is telling the people, the MPP members, that why don't you focus on those that looted and get the monies back? Look at what is happening in the road sector. By the way, let me pat the road minister's back. I think he's doing a yeoman job. He's doing a yeoman job, but the president must compliment his effort, because the road minister made a revelation that a company called Maripopa, you have been paid, you are not working. What do you do? Did you hear him? That respect, that is my tax. The man is not working there. Road minister says no. Road minister disagrees with you.
In relation to a road project?
Yes. But I'm talking about road minister. So to me, in relation to a road project.
A particular project, because it does two.
But the road minister told us that even on a matter of a feeder road, the same promise. What I'm saying is that it means a minister is working, but for the fact that the minister is working, he wouldn't have identified this. And when the minister had identified that there is an anomaly and the issue continues to persist, then the presidency must help the minister. We clear the person out. We must not be entertaining unseriousness.
Okay.
And that is what I believe must be done.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a few comments. Nilati says, all those NDC government appointees and party executives who are secretly campaigning to succeed President JDM are selfish individuals. They don't wish the party well, but rather their selfish interests. They should rather use the energy to help the government to deliver and succeed, so that they will have a good message for the electorate to retain them in power. Okay, and there's also Mandy William Jikunu, who says, for more than 63 years, I've watched politics, and one thing is clear. Politicians should stop using jobs to deceive citizens for their own benefit. Even a new patriotic party truly wants to return to power, they should seriously consider convincing Solomon also to return. Because after the hardships Ghanaians have gone through in the past 8 years, regaining power will not be easy, even in 20 years. Just so, one more, Seidu says, well, the difference is that in 2007, the 17 people declared their intentions. That's why President Kufuor asked them to step aside. But now, no one has yet declared his or her intentions, so the president can't ask them to step aside. So keep those comments coming. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back. When we come back, we'll hear from Comrade Kwesi Prajini.
And so, I was saying, yes, to the future. And yet, the Yantanase and Ma Assembly Siansa. We share Ghana, send the economy in the economy. Ama your consumption air costro. You buy na consumption in number 3,500 megawatts. And then we know can say your 1,300 megawatts. If we say more investment about room, into the demand for electricity is increasing. Into I was say the generation need be account. Say nebeya yebenya redundancy. Ni abrofo friend redundancy. Apart from that, say ye na doso na yedibiko Burkina ne Togo omu ina omu hia kania na omu tuayeka. It will bring foreign exchange into the country. Into yene finance ne energy. Omo design. Yebeye 1,200 megawatts gas-fired electricity generating plant. Na nyamiadom. Afia ameno kase. Yede asobe bofom na sa edwuma na hyase. Na ehu hia so se yebeye sa edwuma no near the 1,200 megawatts account because ye buy no na abaya efiri akonya so koe no omo ne omo a omo tu frangu ni na omo ne omo akon I just say ebinum po omo apake omo nyoma efiri Ghana akotra Cote d'Ivoire enti ye baaye and yes it be
he has labored, he has suffered to lead his people into the land of freedom. He is the Redeemer.
Well, thank you very much for staying tuned to the Mother of All Talk Shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. We are live from the studios of Pan-African Television, live on TV in Ghana and many other countries across the world. We are also live on social media, Pan-African Television, YouTube and Facebook. And of course, we are live on Radio Gold 90.5 FM. We've been discussing the article that has been penned by the Executive Secretary to the President. We'll conclude with the thoughts of Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr. Over to you.
Well, I mean, as soon as this article was published, I think sometime Wednesday morning, I expressed the view that this is the voice of President John Dramani Mahama. And I still believe very firmly that this is the first shot coming from the president himself. Because I cannot imagine any situation where the executive secretary to the president would make comments on such an issue without reference to his boss. It won't happen. In fact, if it happens, under any rational circumstance, the executive secretary will be fired. And since this article was published, there's relative calm in the presidency. I haven't heard of any ripple effect in the presidency and so on. So my belief that this is the voice of President John Dramani Mahama has become firmer. The other thing that I want to take into consideration is the fact that this is not the first time that Dr. Callistus Mahama has done something like this. Where there have been very controversial national issues and so on, he has intervened. And his interventions up till now have been very mature, very well thought through, and very well written. In fact, this particular intervention is so well crafted, that if he did it without help, then he must be seen as a master writer. There's a work of art, brilliant work. And you can't take that away from Dr. Callistus Mahama. You see, this morning, even around this table, all of my colleagues say that, it's okay to be ambitious. There's nothing wrong to be ambitious. Ambition is fine and so on. I completely disagree. Some ambitions betray mental instability. Clear. Some ambitions betray mental instability. Some ambitions are detrimental to the national good, to the common good. Some ambitions really portray those who carry them as nothing more than idiots. That's a fact. Look, in my lifetime, not too long ago, there was a man who fancied himself as the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, and who made Jowulu his home. He became known popularly as Jesus Christ of Jowulu. This Jesus Christ of Jowulu believed that if you take your bath, you won't go to heaven, and created a very smelly enclave in Jowulu. And the final analysis, it took state security to drive him out. He was a very ambitious person. To aspire to be Jesus Christ, I would suggest, is more weightier than aspiring to be president of Ghana. He had ambition, but he was a madman, complete madman. And it is madness which fueled his ambition. We have heard all the stories about all the serial killers, the prolific serial killers and so on. They had ambition. For some of them, the ambition was to kill as many as possible and to evade arrest. They were ambitious people. They were crazy. They were murderers. Why? Hitler didn't have ambition. Was Hitler's ambition correct? Obviously not. So it's not every ambition that should be glorified, and it is not every ambition which should be pursued. Now, there is something else that I think is important in this discussion. All of those who are nursing, displaying, and pursuing these ambitions, some of which are totally crazy, you understand? All of them, elected not to act as individuals. If you belong to a political party, the only meaning that can come out of that is that you have agreed to make your personal ambition subservient to the collective ambition of members of the party. You can't be a member of a political party, especially its leader, and think that your ambition is the most important consideration in that party. It cannot happen. It must not happen. Membership of a political party imposes responsibility, and one of the key responsibilities is the subjection of your personal ambition to collective ambition. So in discussing this ambition thing, I think that we need to take all of these things into consideration. But you see, today, how can anybody serving in this government or any other government pursue his or her personal ambition to become president without creating factions? Tell me, we are all condemning factionalism. You cannot pursue these ambitions, some of which are totally reckless, without creating factions. And Honorable, you are a member of parliament, you know, I'm not the one to tell you that factions have emerged in the National Democratic Congress today. Yes. And if I lie, tell me, tell our listeners, tell the viewers. Today, if you go to any state institution which believes that it has not been adequately resourced, or that funds for its projects have not come in time and so on, what is the explanation which is given? The only explanation which is given, and all of you know, the only explanation which is given is that Atufosin wants to be president, and because he sees me as a possible rival, or because he thinks I'm supporting his opponent, he's crippling my ministry and he's crippling my department. This is common knowledge. So why are we hiding from it? So the machinery of government is suffering as a result of these declared and undeclared ambitions. The factions have emerged. Now, imagine today that the National Democratic Congress has to do something which will bring credit to the party. And if it brings credit to the party, it obviously brings credit to those who participate in engineering that something. Do you think that those who see Asiedu Nketia as a rival will put in everything they have to make sure that something succeeds which will make Asiedu Nketia more popular than them? Do you think that that will happen? Put on your thinking caps. Do you think that that will happen? It will never happen. So this factionalism is eating at the party. It's eating at the party. It's destroying the party and so on. And that is why over the week I've heard many commentators in the NPP jubilating over this apparent crisis. They are happy. If they want to fight, let them fight. Why stop them? Let them be ambitious. You know, we are waiting and so on. Why? And all of these people involved in this are adults. They have scars on their neck. They should use the scars on their neck. You understand? Should they be told? Should they be told? Solomon has made a certain point, and I don't intend to amplify it beyond a certain level and so on. That at least there's one person who does not appear to be pushing a personal ambition. Solomon, you made that point. And everybody is wondering why. Why is the vice president not pushing her ambition and so on and so on? The only time I've heard her speak about this race was when she was asked, and she said her commitment, her only commitment, her prime commitment is to make John Mahama succeed, to make the NDC succeed, to make the NDC live a legacy. If I like tell me. And that it is that legacy which will determine the future of the NDC. Why can't the others behave the same? Because you see, no matter what happens, if by 2028 the 24-hour economy project does not show results, you are out of power.
133.
You are out of power. If by 2028 the dreams embedded in the books, big push project are not realized, you are out of power. If at the end of your tenure, people think that you have not pursued the principles of probity and accountability to its logical conclusion, you are out of power. If by 2028, cadres of the National Democratic Congress don't get any sense of relief from their problems and so on, you are out of power. So these are the things you have to focus attention on. You have been in power for how long? For close to 18 months. And all we hear is that this is the one going to succeed Mahama. That is the one going to succeed Mahama. Are you people crazy? You think that Ghana cares? You think that the woman sitting at Agbobushi market, who took her goods to the market and has not been bought and so on, is worrying herself about who is going to take over from Mahama? When the lights go off, you think that we worry? That's our worry? So focus attention on what the problems of the people of Ghana are and deal with those problems. If you deal with those problems adequately and people begin to have confidence that the NDC is a party which keeps its promises and that anytime the NDC comes to power, there's improvement in their life and so on, who would not vote for you? But if at the end of the 8 years, things are what they may be, you can go and bring the angel Gabriel in a white gown, make him your candidate, and you will lose. It's clear. It's clear. Look, and there are all kinds of problems. First of all, I do not want to make a submission which suggests that all the people who have been mentioned are actually pursuing that ambition. Okay, but they have been mentioned. And it is because they have been mentioned that I'm going to use them to illustrate the point that I'm making. You see, in this system, from all that we have been told by the president himself, it is clear that the chief enforcer of discipline in the party is the chief of staff. The president has told us. Indeed, when he met the ministers and they went through the code of ethics and so on, he said the chief of staff will be the enforcer. How can the chief of staff be enforcing discipline in government when he declares his ambition and is seen as a leader of a faction within that government? How is that possible? It is not possible. He cannot effectively function as a chief of staff and at the same time function as a person nursing an ambition to replace, the sitting president. In any case, if you look at the hierarchy, president, the next person in line is the vice president. All of these people who are being mentioned as nursing ambitions have to work to the vice president. How is that possible when she's sitting there and everything points to the fact that they are preparing to come and remove the seat from under her Kominini? You understand? How is that possible? So it creates unnecessary tension. It diverts attention from the developmental needs of our people, creates factions within the government, and ultimately cripples the government machinery. Now, you listen to some of the explanations, and it's shocking. They say, oh, it's a normal phenomenon. There's a phenomenon of the lame duck. You've heard it. They say it, lame duck. And that when it's getting close to 2028, and some say as close as 2027, President Mahama will have no authority. And therefore, everybody can do as they please. They are thinking like this. And the president is sitting there watching them. I fully agree with Solo. I fully agree with Ninoy. Sack them. Simple. Sack them. This first shot should have come a long time ago. By now, we should be seeing the sackings. Sack them. Those you can sack, sack them. Those you can't sack, show them the red light. Why? President, show them the red light and let's see what happens. I mean, it's incredible. I mean, there's so many things that I'm constrained. I can't say, because I mean there'll be questions of how did you know and so on. I mean, so many things. But you know, you are a member of the NDC. You are an MP. You know. And I was expecting you to say them. No, I'm not on you, Master. I'm not on you. What? There are so many reports of party cadres with legitimate organizational problems, not personal problems. Going to headquarters and not finding anybody to speak to. Haven't you heard about that? Haven't people from your region told you about that? Because people, instead of focusing on doing the job, are out there campaigning, dreaming of becoming president. Incredible. Look, empirical studies have shown, and I'm not talking about guesswork and so on, all of the survey agencies and so on have shown that to be president of Ghana, the minimum amount you need is $100 million. Huh? So you know. You know. So if you appoint a minister or appoint a chief executive of a state organization so on, and is nursing this ambition, it means that he's going to have $100 million in his back pocket. How is a person going to get $100 million in his back pocket and still ensure that the business of government is carried on and carried on successfully? Think about it. So what is happening is reckless in the extreme. What is happening is not in the interest of the NDC, and what is happening cannot be in the interest of the people of Ghana. And it is about time leaders in that party make a choice. They have to make a choice. They either want to fulfill their personal ambition, which may not necessarily be party ambition, and which may not necessarily be national ambition. You see, because there's no way personal ambition can easily translate into party ambition and national ambition. It is not. So if it is personal ambition they want to pursue, they should clear out of the party and clear out of government and go and pursue their personal ambitions. Unfortunately, they don't want to clear out because they think that party positions and government positions gives them an edge over others. You understand? Because they also know that being in party leadership and government positions and so on enables them, gives them access to state resources which may either directly or indirectly be used in nurturing their personal ambition. We should not allow that to happen. We should not. Ghana should not allow that to happen. And President Mahama, more than anybody else, has a responsibility to himself and Ghana to ensure that these reckless, in most cases useless ambitions are nipped in the bud. Masha, we are all around. You understand? Some of these people who are jumping over themselves and dreaming that they too will be called excellencies and that they will drive in convoys and so on. Master, you know them. Some of them cannot string 2 sentences together. 2 sentences. You don't, you know, Sena. If you don't know, you say it. Master, they can't string 2 sentences together. They want to be president. Why? They can't look at themselves. You see, this is the problem. Leadership is not the result of self-proclamation. Leadership is the result of hard work and sacrifice for the collective good. I'm sure a few of them, when they wake up in the morning, they go and stand in the mirror in their bedroom, they look at their faces, they turn their backs and so on. Say, I look good. Say, I look good. Then they touch their pockets, and then the pockets are a bit heavy. Something they there. Say, pocket 2 is not bad. I look good. My pocket is not bad, and so on. And then they start proclaiming themselves as future president. What is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? The other day I was discussing this matter. In fact, it was on Wednesday. And then somebody told me that, you see, it's not their fault. When they go out and people praise them and say, oh, you can be president and so on, they take it seriously. But if there's anybody who is taking such praise singing seriously, he is sick. He needs to have his head examined. Master, Nino, tell me the truth. How many times haven't you gone out and somebody come to you and say, oh, you are the best leader the NPP should have had? You haven't heard that before. Master, you haven't you heard that before? Solomon, also haven't you heard that? Sena, haven't you heard that before? And I told my own story. I'm driving in town. Somebody frantically stops me. So I park the car. And this elderly man comes to me and says, you are the problem of Ghana. I say, hey, how am I the problem of Ghana? He says, you haven't become president. You are sitting there and look at the people we are having. If you became president, this country would not have any problems. So, if because of that, I go and declare intention to become president of Ghana, what did you say? You're sick. Wouldn't you think that I'm gagas? What? You see, and sometimes too, it's not their fault. Some of them have had very little education. I do not mean the kind of education which results in the award of PhDs and so on. They've had very little education. They probably don't even know the story of Don Quixote. Some say Don Quixote and so on. Don Quixote. They are behaving like Don Quixote. That is the behavior they are putting up. Don Quixote. They shouldn't waste our time. They shouldn't waste anybody's time. Why? Their recklessness is destroying so many things. And you see, I have said that the president has to put his foot down. But it's not just the president who has to put his foot down. The National Democratic Congress has a council of elders. The council of elders, can't they see what is happening? Look, there's a major debate about the direction of state policy. There's a major debate about all the projects that the NDC has started and so on. Go to social media. What is the debate about? The NDC, so-called NDC communicators and so on, are torn between dreamer number 1, dreamer number 2, and dreamer number 3. That is why they are spending all their effort. Because it is more rewarding to support the ambitions of one of these Don Quixotes than to defend party policy. You understand? It has become far more rewarding to follow the Don Quixotes than even to follow John Dramani Mahama. I mean, the other day I was on one of these platforms and an NDC cadre actually said that he, and I'm sure all of you who are on those platforms, there are many people on that platform, saying that he doesn't worry about John Mahama. John Mahama's era has come, he's gone. And that is looking for somebody who has a future and who will be able to guarantee his future. and has a candidate, and therefore has a candidate. You allow this to persist, and this to take you into 2028 elections, you have lost. And I want to make some point. Master, if you take all of our elections, at least from 1992 to date, there's an argument you can make which says that nobody wins elections in Ghana. Governments lose elections. And it is governments losing elections which brings the opposition to power. It's a fact. You understand? So, look, today, all of us can point to the things that went wrong under the MPP administration. All of us. Even the MPP members and leaders know what went wrong, what led to their defeat. You understand? They know what went wrong, what went to their defeat. But you see, by 2028, 4 years would have passed since the MPP left office. There's a certain element which dulls people's memory. And what is happening now can be more important than what happened last year and so on. So people's focus is more likely to be on this 4-year period that we are giving to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama to manage the affairs of state, rather than the last 8 years before then. Wake up. You should wake up and take this reality into account. Take this reality into account. What is this? And in fact, what does it matter for the ordinary Ghanaian whether Sena becomes president or Solomon Owusu becomes president or Ninoy becomes president? What they want is a government which will repair roads and build roads. What they want is a government which will make it easier for them to send their children to school. What they want is a government which will make food cheaper. If not cheaper, at least stabilize the prices of food. You understand? What they want is to live in a community where there's no doomso and so on. Those are the things which must win elections. Not because of Don Quixote woke up in the morning, looked himself in the mirror and thought he was handsome. Wake up, my friends.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And that concludes the very first discussion on this matter of the latest article penned by the Executive Secretary to the President. Of course, everybody around the table except for Honorable didn't make that point, but okay, I didn't make that point. But there's the opinion that is the opinion. And yes.
He made it first.
Okay. But that was earlier. He made it very early when the article came out initially. That is the president speaking. That means that the president has an issue. So let me just go through a few comments so that we'll move on to the matter of the xenophobic attacks that are happening currently in South Africa and the concerns that have been expressed. If you just join us, this is a matter of all talk shows, Alhaji and Alhaji. Of course, we are live on Pan-African Television, live on Radio Gold. We are live on many other affiliate stations across the country. Let's move on to that discussion anyway. And I'll start with Ninoy on that one. Yeah.
Thank you once again. You know, let's cast our minds into the future. Maybe 50 years from today, when Palestine would have been free for at least maybe 20 or 30 years, and a few Iranians would find themselves on the streets of Jerusalem being hounded and beaten and killed by Palestinians whom the people of Iran today are suffering for. I want us to picture that image. That is the image of, or that is what the reality of what we are finding in South Africa today. It's very unfortunate. In fact, it's dehumanizing for Africans to go through this over and over and over again. If you look at the history of South Africa itself, it's been a very, very bitter history. I mean, you have made slaves in your own land, your own homes. You have been put together like, let's say, cattle in towns like Soweto and all. They put the black people there like cattle. In fact, it's no different from what happened in places like Australia, New Zealand, the whole of Americas, from Canada all the way to Argentina, whitening the population in places like Argentina, Brazil, what the Israelis are doing today in Palestine. It's no different. And that is why we are all against it. We're against it and are still against it anywhere we find apartheid, even in Western Papua, in Indonesia. They have the same problems, where the black man or the black-skinned man or the person with a little bit of pigment in his skin is looked down upon and trampled upon. But it really hurts more when it's been done to you by your own brother. If it's done by a third party, you might say that, oh, for obvious reasons, we are not the same. We are not the same, in quotes. But when it's being done by your own brother, South Africa's history is very checkered. And if you analyze their history very well, you can tell that there's a society with a post-traumatic stress disorder. South Africa. 90% of the adult men that you see there, maybe anybody about 45 years or 40 years, it's like an ex-combatant. Either they were in Mkonto Sizwe, they were in SWAPO, they were in any of those organizations. Both white and blacks. The whites had a national service scheme. They all fought in Angola, they fought in Namibia, they fought in Mozambique, the bush wars, the Angolan bush wars and all those wars. So it's a population that is very violent by nature, you know, coupled with the, I would say, slavery within their own territorial boundaries. So the history of South Africa is very checkered. If you look at the history between the relations between the indigenous peoples themselves, the Zulus, the Tswana, all those people, they've been fighting each other. If you take the Zulus, for example, they had a very deep nationalistic or nationalism, I would say, project led by Inkatha and IFP and all those organizations. So South Africa is not what you see on the surface. What you see on the surface is just a tip of the iceberg. South Africa is a very, I would say, bitter society at the base. And I always describe South Africa as a cup of cappuccino. The economic structure. You know cappuccino, the coffee cup, is black at the bottom. You have some cream on top. Then you would have some black chocolate droppings on top of it. That's the South Africa for you. You have a big black mass, which is the black population, a white population that sits on top, and some small black people that enjoy this BE program and blah, 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 and became part of the elite and who are sitting on top as the political class and the economic class, including their current president, Ramaphosa. All of them have become beneficiaries of the black empowerment program. So that is the nature of South Africa. South Africa's history has developed a certain thought process. In fact, in South Africa, throughout the 80s and 70s and 60s, when you turn on the TV, they spoke about South Africa and Africa. So the people have a certain notion of the rest of Africa. Unfortunately, post-1994, our own ANC, or African leaders that took over power, have not done much for the masses of the masses of South Africa. They haven't done, in fact, if you see the kind of buildings that apartheid was even building for them, and you compare it to what the ANC government is building for them, the apartheid ones look better. That is South Africa. I went there a few years ago with my wife, and I took time to visit some places just to understand the culture and the mindset of the people. So it's not that I'm speaking from afar. I've been there. I followed their politics and their history for a while. This is the reality of South Africa. Education for the blacks is poor. They have no skill set. So after apartheid, half of the mercenary companies around the world, Sunderland, Executive Outcomes, all those institutions were manned by South Africans, both white and blacks. They were just mercenaries. All the wars in Sierra Leone and Liberia were fought by them. That's the population that you have there. So it is a very violent society. Very, very violent society. Rape. A society where people, I mean, they have one of the highest levels of rape. I'm not justifying their actions. I just want people to understand the mindset of the people that we are dealing with before we get into the politics. So South Africa has had a very checkered history. Okay, even when we're getting close to the end of apartheid in the early 90s, there were black on black wars, literally, armed on both sides. On both sides, there were countless massacres for us to be able to have the kind of, the semblance of peace and structure that we have. The last elections that they had, internal elections that they had, brought out something. If you look at the votes and the demographics of the votes, you can tell that one bloc, the Zulu bloc, went with Nkomto Sizwe, the new political party. They won all of the Natal areas, KwaZulu-Natal area, which is where their stronghold is, where Jacob Zuma and his people come. Yes. That is where all this is coming from. All this Dadula matter, that's where it's coming from. That is where Inkatha Freedom Party also came from. Chief Buthelezi or something, that was his name. That's where it also comes from. So they have an agenda. In fact, there are reports that Zuma's daughter sponsored some youths to go and fight in Russia to bring them back to help them with their own national what do you call it, agenda as a political grouping. So there's so much going on locally in their politics, both their local politics and then I would say external politics as well. On the local political front, there are issues with some people are using this as a tool to take off, I mean to build their political capacity within the space. And you see, the saddest part of it is that the black South African is not even fighting for what belongs to him. He's fighting for what somebody else has come to create. The jobs that they are talking about, the corner shops that the Somalis have created, the Ethiopians have created, the Ghanaians are there doing hairdressing. All these skill sets, these people don't have it. They don't have that capacity. They were lumped up in reservations like you have reservations in America. They are like zoos. Soweto, Southwestern Township or something like that. It's a human zoo that has become a town. It's in the middle of a power plant, a coal power plant. When you get there now, the coal power plant has been designed and people go and do bungee jumping and things on it. They put them on the middle of a coal power plant where they will inhale the soot and die. So life expectancy was supposed to be low until recently. So this, I can go on and on and on and on with that history and what is happening there. So we should understand that the undertones are not on the surface. There are deep cracks in the state. Deep cracks. And now I also sincerely believe that there's a lot of foreign interference in this thing that's happening in South Africa. Because South Africa has taken upon itself as a state to fight apartheid and fight it openly through the ICC. Today it's gaining traction. Many countries are supporting the case today. Belgium, countries that have never been pro anything.
Israeli apartheid.
Yes, Israeli apartheid, that's what I'm talking about. Many countries. Slovenia, countries that normally don't participate in these things are popping up. Spain recently rallied all the leftist parties into a meeting in Madrid. Brazil, all of them were there. And the agenda was the same. And it is what South Africa sparked. That is what has led to this. So I wouldn't rule out foreign interference that is fueling this division in there and creating problems for the rest of us. But having said all that, there are also legitimate reasons why these attacks are happening. Because, like we all know, when you come to Ghana, in quotes, we have become lawless. Somebody wakes up in the morning, finds a space and puts a container there and begins to sell. Puts a table out somewhere on the pavement and is selling. We'll be chasing them with canes at Makola. When you come to Tema, same thing. South Africa is a bit different. When you go there, you can tell that it is an organized society, much better organized than ours. And the people are seeing that, no, things are deteriorating because our officials are allowing some things to happen. So when you watch some of the videos, you can tell somebody is selling on the street. It is not on the pavement. It is illegal. And therefore people would naturally would want to oppose such things. But I believe that that is the surface. The reality is at the base. But to use violence as the solution is where I do not accept or I support what is happening. You can solve that problem through the courts, through legitimate means. Because when you go to South Africa, there's crime. Some of the crime is being committed by our people who have moved there or moved there to go and live there. They are, I mean, our neighboring country, I don't need to mention their names, with their youth there, we know what they do there. They have gangs, black acts, and this, that, and that. They are running the streets, running all the drugs and stuff like that on the street, and prostitution. We have them in Ghana as well. They are doing the same thing in South Africa. But they are doing that even in Europe, in Lampedusa, in some of the Italian islands. They've kicked out some of the Italian mafias, Comoros. They've kicked the Camorra gang out of one of the islands in Europe. And they are from West Africa. It's a gang from West Africa. So there are legitimate concerns that we have to address dispassionately and also find solutions to as we go ahead. But that notwithstanding, they have, I mean, the AU, in my opinion, is acting late. Even the South African president, I think, acted late. He could have acted earlier. Because this is not the first time this is happening. It happened in 2019. It happened before 2019, but I remember 2019 vividly. And it's happening again. And whenever there are local elections coming up, these things pop up. And people use it as tools. You know, because if you look at the AU itself, I mean, if you take the AU, African Union and the African unity that we are looking for, in fact, the president of Kenya recently made a statement saying that he doesn't believe that the African Union in its current shape and form can bring the unity that we are looking for. And I also subscribe to that. I mean, I subscribe to that notion. Because if we really want to unite, then the steps that we are taking as a body or as an African Union, as a political body, would not send us into that direction. No. If you look at our African Union Constitutive Act, Article 3B, it says, and it's I mean, explicit, that we are keeping our borders as they are. We have to respect the borders as they are. We have to respect the sovereignty of these artificial states. We have to respect the governments and respect the structures that are already laid down. So there's no room for the unity that we are looking at, trying to create a federation or confederacy of a sort and all that. So we have to go back to the drawing board. And underlying all this is the artificial nature of our states. African states are European creations. In fact, the problems you are facing in Ghana is no different from the problems that are being faced in places like the Middle East, what we call the Middle East, in Syria, the Levant area. There's no difference. What is happening in Mali today is the same thing. We have imposed or superimposed on already existing nation states these new identities and entities called Côte d'Ivoire, Ghana, Mali, you know, and everybody wants self-determination. And for me, I always use Bangladesh as an example. Bangladesh was part of Pakistan. It was called East Pakistan and Bangladesh, and what we call Pakistan, it was called West Pakistan. They all came out of India. The British carved them out of India on religious lines. But the Bangladeshi people said, no, we are Bengalis. And therefore, we don't need to be part of this entity called Pakistan. We want to be on our own. And they got their independence in 1971 and became a nation state called Bangladesh, the land of the Bengals. Just like Thailand is the land of the Thais. That is the, in my candid opinion, that is the way Africa should have been. Post-independence Africa should have gone back to the drawing board and align ourselves along our ethno-linguistic lines and would have lived peacefully. Just like Europe did post-Second World War, just like Asia did, just like India has done, just like even China. The internal mechanisms of China, if you go to Fujian, the people speak a different language. They don't speak what do you call it, what we call Mandarin. They speak their own indigenous language and Mandarin. When you go to Hong Kong and Guangzhou, they speak Cantonese. When they speak Cantonese, the other people don't understand. It's like me speaking Twi and somebody speaking Chuana or whatever. They're separate languages, but they all live together. So Africa would have to evolve for us to be able to deal with some of these issues. Because when you go to South Africa and you say a Ghanaian is a foreigner, for a South African, a Ghanaian is a foreigner. However, an African who migrated there is not a foreigner, because they are looking at it only from the context of the state that has been created by the European. In fact, if you are a Zulu from Lesotho, because there are some Zulus in Lesotho, and you are a Zulu from South Africa, the Zulu from Lesotho is a foreigner. But these are rules that have been imposed on us by others. My grandmother always used to say that our farms are in Côte d'Ivoire. Because when you go to our place in Jomoro, half of our land is in Côte d'Ivoire. In fact, Lomé. If you want to buy land in Lomé, you buy it from the chiefs in Angloga. There are parts of Lomé where you buy the land from Ghana. I hope you understand it. So these are the realities of Africa. So not to belabor that point, but there are underlying issues that Africa must sit up and address. And I expect that our leaders will take up the mantle and address it. Otherwise, we'll be going back round in circles and circles and circles and come back to square one. And people would always be pitching A against B. In fact, brother against brother. The formula that Israel is using in, apartheid Israel is using in Palestine today is the same formula that South Africa used. You clear a portion, you make them refugees on this side for a while, you clear this side, you bring these ones here. Just over a period of 100 years, the people will lose their identities and lose who they are, like they did in America. It has always been an European supremacy idea or strategy or structure, and that is what is happening. So we also have to take some measures. I've seen the foreign minister talking about Ghanaians protecting themselves, but he has to also go beyond that, because it's becoming one too many. African states must also find punitive measures and punish South Africa. Pull their ears a little. There's so many ways of killing a cat. It doesn't have to be grandiose, but we can pull something. Today, I know Goldfields, the South African company, is trying to extend its lease. Maybe the government of Ghana must not extend the lease as a punitive measure. So, because they are making that 25% of their revenue globally is coming from Takwa. That company, that South African company, is coming from Takwa. So, if we take our lease and give it to those who lost out on the Damine mine, Maripoma and BCM and Co, they are all Ghanaian-owned companies. They can do the job. They are actually the ones doing the job. So, we have to take some steps. We have to find a way of letting them know that there are consequences for their actions if they don't, as a state, take care of those problems. Because an African cannot be a foreigner anywhere in Africa. An African cannot be a foreigner anywhere in Africa. And for me, when I talk about Africa, I'm talking about the greater Africa. The continent of Africa plus the Middle East. It's all part of Africa. Until the Suez Canal was built, it was all Africa. So from Cape Verde to Mauritius, and then to the Mauritian Islands, what do you call it? Diego Garcia. It's all part of Africa. It's our land. From there to there, no African that looks like you and I should be a foreigner in any of these places. And therefore, we as a people must also find time and educate our people in South Africa. We must use our social media and our influencers to impress on them, let them understand. And most importantly, create the economic conditions for Africans to thrive in Africa. Create the economic conditions for our people to thrive in Africa so that we can create jobs for our own people. Look at what Dangote is doing. If you had 1,000 Dangotes in Africa, that will change all the dynamics. The man is prepared to build a 20,000 megawatts power plant, 5 times what Ghana is consuming today. And when I saw it, I was so happy. Because the whole Nigeria, with all the wealth that you can think about, Nigeria spent $18 billion on refurbishing 4 refineries, only to give it to a Chinese man to come and refurbish it again. $18 billion. Meanwhile, this man alone has built a refinery for $18 billion. I hope you understand me. So, African leaders must now sit up and solve our problems, so that our people don't have to migrate and go and find menial jobs. You go to Equatorial Guinea and Ghanaian teachers are security men. Equatorial Guinea, Ghanaian teachers are security men. You go to South Africa and Ghanaian teachers are security men there. Gardeners. Why? Why should that be the case? So as a collective, as a people, as the people of Africa, we must really sit up and get our acts together well and create jobs for our people, create wealth for our people, so that our people don't need to go and run around the world going to beg for alms, going to beg for, menial jobs. I mean, if 30 years ago people were doing menial jobs, Ghanaians should stop doing menial jobs. Ghanaians should now be building their own country. And that's what I believe in. I believe that that is the way forward and that's the solution. So we are pleading with our brothers and sisters in South Africa that they should accommodate our people, just as we accommodated them when times were tough for them. Look, Ghanaian churches, I remember one of our Methodist elders, his past long ago, told us how the church used to put a portion of our Sunday collections aside for the ANC. ANC leaders came to Ghana and were housed and kept in Ebri, Ekropong. That's where they were being kept. Some of our parents, my mother went to school with children from Swapo. She says they were all called Shipepe, everybody Shipepe, you know. So she always used to tell us about these stories. So we have sacrificed a lot. Nigeria is now calling for reparations from the people of South Africa. I think there must be some punitive measure in there to let South Africa know that no, we are not happy with what is going on, and that if Africans are to come together as one people, it will take their governments to also accommodate us and their people to also understand and accommodate us and allow us all to, because if you look at Africa with a population of about 1.2 billion, it's a huge market. Okay. A huge market for any business to thrive. Okay. And I see that some of these things are just, I would say they are just small problems in the scheme of things, or in the larger scheme of things, that can be resolved quickly, so that we move on together as one people. Thank you very much, Sena.
Thank you very much. Of course, if you just join us, we are discussing the petition that has been submitted by Foreign Affairs Minister Honorable Samuel Okudzeto Ablakwa to the EU Commission. They want to make, we are asking on our behalf that xenophobia be made an agenda at the mid-year meeting that heads of states will attend. Honorable.
Well, thanks so much. I think some amount of justice has been given to the topic and issue by Honorable Ni. But on the issue of the petition currently before the AU, the question is, has the AU in the past lived up to expectation? I don't know where this man is now off his seat. We call him Musa Faki Mahama. He was the chairman of the AU Commission. He's a Chadian. Yeah. From 2017 to 2025. He he was the chairman of the AU. You know what he said? He said that 90%, not 10, not 20, not even 50, he said 90% of AU decisions go unimplemented. And his reason was that because the heads of state are not committed to the implementation of AU's decisions. So I asked myself, if we are running back, assuming, yes, it is admitted as an agenda item during their mid-year sitting, and then all the requests we have made are considered, where does it take us? It will just become part of the 90% of the AU decisions. And it will go nowhere. We all are seeing the challenges we are bedeviled with. Because the AU itself has not been able to even win itself from the influence of the European and then yes. They are funded by the Westerners. And trust me, what is happening in South Africa here is even furthering the interests of the Western people, the whites. Because it clearly means that we have even forgotten the fight we should be fighting. It means that we have, in fact now, so when I look at the situation in South Africa, it means that we have lost it. Because if we're going to pursue the apartheid agenda, because it's just the political aspect of the apartheid victory that has been won, the economic aspect is yet to even be started. Which is where you get Malema coming in to talk about the need for us to now fight for the economic freedom. We have won the political freedom. In fact, even the political freedom is even a mirage. Because, ask him, Cape Town is ruled by the whites. Oh, yeah. You understand? And now they're making inroads. I think their former vice president was from the white party. You understand? The good thing about it is that when you speak to people, to South Africans today, in fact, there's a friend I spoke to when this matter started. And he tells me, in fact, he described the situation as being barbaric. And coincidentally, the person is from the KZN area, KwaZulu-Natal area, Durban. So clearly, it is not the entire population of South Africa that are doing this or that approve of this situation. And he spoke about violence in South Africa. South Africa is home to serious violence. In fact, it's the capital town of violence in the world. And you know, sometimes the justification they give for this violence, their feeling is that they have been deprived of what is due them for so many years. And so if they cannot get it by legal means, they must get it by all means. That's their feeling, especially the blacks. Look, the last time I was in South Africa, there's this guy, I forgot his name, he barbers me. So when anytime I want to barber, I call him when he comes with my friends. The last time the guy came, he told me he was leaving for Ghana. I asked him why. He told me that the last 3 days before he came, that was the 4th time they put gun to his head to rob him. And he says that he doesn't know whether he will survive the 5th attempt. Because for all these four occasions, he survived it. But he doesn't know what next will happen. So when it comes to violence, crime, South Africa is the headquarters of it. And it's mostly 99.9% done by the blacks. And they have justification for it. In fact, sometimes when they do that, you take them to a police station. They are even fighting with the police. Especially if they are a foreigner, if you are from another another African country. They are fighting with the police for rather fighting for you instead of for them. Because they feel that you are there to take what belongs to them. And like Nina rightly said, most of these shops they go about closing, these people brought their monies from their own countries to set up these shops. They are not employed by government. These people are not government employees. So what makes those shops or those businesses your own? Because the space is not even finished. You can equally set up your own shop and run it. So we have a big problem in South Africa. And this AU is not a forum for that. The AU has failed in many fronts. Look at this coup contagion on the continent. What has AU been able to do? And sadly, about the situation in South Africa, the government seems to be toothless. The government doesn't seem to have its way around the situation. It has just left the whole issue to handle itself like it's on autopilot. It's just he's just praying. I'm sure the government is doing like what our pastors do here. They just pray that the situation will be resolved. And unfortunately, there are serious businessmen who are also behind the scene fueling it. So the issue will not die today. It will not die tomorrow. So even if an AU decision is taken, trust me, it will just be state to state. It will just be AU to state. You can only implore on the government of the day to do something about it. But the government also sees it. And the government is the president. Cyril Ramaphosa is lamenting like you and I. The leaders are lamenting. They just can't control the situation. And I was given an example of one of the leaders going to a filling station to ask one of the fuel attendants what nationality he was. He moved from this person to this person, and he was satisfied. The moment the person says he's from South Africa, then the man is happy. You are happy that all you get is being a fuel attendant in your own land. So you don't care who the fuel attendant reports to, who is the managing director of that oil company. That should not be your preoccupation. Once that one, the white man occupies there, all the way, once you are getting this fuel attendant level job, then that gives you some satisfaction. Look, I have a friend in South Africa who did he was a pilot. In fact, he was one of the people who started Passion. He did his pilot training in South Africa. He told me that the years he spent in Durban, and the training he had it in Durban, almost all the South Africans that he was in class with, none of them has been able to graduate as a pilot. Till date, they are still doing one course or the other. The man has been flying since. So the people are not even interested in education. You just don't know what they want. And trust me, in this world, if you are going to find a society that drinks like the South African society, you are yet to find it. They take almost everything to the fullest. And when you meet them and you go out with them and you tell them you don't drink, they just can't understand it. They just can't put their heads around it. So these are people, look, with all the when Jacob Zuma became president, he tried his best because, like I said, this problem is, even as we speak, is coming from Jacob Zuma's own backyard, KwaZulu-Natal. Because this is where the Zulus are. And they are the people who, no matter the amount of opportunity, especially education-wise, you throw at them, they won't pay. They just need quick money. And but they are as lazy as anything. They want to be rich, but they don't want to go the hard way. You understand? And so they are the problem of this society. Unfortunately, politics has woven into some of these things. Today, even though Jacob Zuma is not the president, he controls that area. His party controls that space. That is why Nino made reference to his daughter who suffered because of the training, the youth she took to Russia for the training. Do you know that when the lady stepped aside, her sister became the next person to succeed? Because that area, you have to just belong to Zuma's before you can control the area. You know, he was the rep for the how do they call them? He was in charge of that area long before. And you know, Durban it's more like, commercially it's very viable. Because that's where the port is. It's like Tema. So the whole South Africa, the main port for South Africa, the biggest port is in Durban. So it is the most commercial viable area you can find. Unfortunately, they have this system where you can control where you will. You understand? So Zuma and his party, they control that area. So even if they want to make your government unpopular, these are some of the things they can use to make you unpopular. And like Nin rightly said, some of these is they mostly rear their ugly heads during elections or when you are nearing elections. And so there's a big problem to contend with. Trust me, South Africa is a very beautiful society. But see, if you've been to South Africa, almost all the shanty areas, almost all the slums are occupied by blacks. And the crime rate in these areas is unimaginable. unimaginable. Go to Alexandra. Go to Soweto. And almost all the area, even Joburg, the Joburg city area, they have this. Look, there was a day I was passing there, and a friend was pointing to me that this hotel is the only 7-star hotel in Africa, and it is now it has been deserted. He says the hotel rotates. Exactly. That whole area is an abandoned area. If you see the infrastructure in that area, look, the whites have this. And you see, the whites have found a way to let the people to just denigrate the people to some level. Look, there are some communities where you go. Sometimes you go, say 10 years ago, there were whites there. You go today, you won't find a single white man there. Once the whites begin to see the blacks settling in those communities, they begin to move. Because there's this mindset about them, and sometimes it's justified. Because almost all the areas you find the blacks concentrated, crime rate is high, pollution of the environment is high. Almost everything is bizarre. Everything is bizarre. So there's I don't know why it's a curse. But today, I think the whites in South Africa will be laughing, but they'll be jubilating within themselves. Because they have succeeded. Because trust me, this energy that we are using to fight our fellow blacks was what we needed to fight them, to fight the whites. Look, Zuma tried to take their procurement. Initially, blacks could not come anywhere near their tender issues. Today, you have a lot of blacks winning tenders and doing a lot of the mining jobs to some level. And here today, most of those gains have been lost. You understand? So the government of the day in South Africa, to me, if you ask me, has lost it. And so if any AU takes even a decision today, AU itself cannot go into South Africa to do anything because of the principle of non-interference. You can only implore on the government of the day to, as it were, implement your decision. Yet, not that the government does not admit there is a problem. The government does admit that there is a problem. But it is completely out of touch with the reality. It can't handle the situation.
Okay.
You understand? And so, I think that, and I understand our foreign minister's position. That is the highest level he can go. You understand? Me, the other level, I also agree with him that some of these reciprocal measures, we should also be. Unfortunately, you see, if we take these reciprocal measures, I think at least we may be putting the cart before the house. We'll be targeting the wrong people. Because if you look at the people who are behind it in South Africa, they are not the people that you can easily go after with some of these policies, because for them, one, they are not even within the government. They are just, it's just because of the level of education, very low level of education, which is making. So if you are punishing, you'll be punishing the wrong person or another person for someone's misdeeds. That's them. Otherwise, it would have been the best measure, because you have a lot of South African companies operating here. And in early this year, I've said before, early this year, you had Ghanaians, about 9 or so Ghanaians killed in the mine site of Angogo Ashanti, a South African company. Only they were killing Ghanaians to protect South African commercial interest. That is how far we can go in protecting even our fellow African commercial entities or commercial interests. So we were killing. In fact, our military killed some Ghanaians who were trying to cause mayhem in the minor concession of Angogo Asset, which is a South African company. Yet, South Africa is rather sacking us and beating us and molesting Ghanaians and other African nationals just because they are making economic living. They are making their living from, and they are not taking any opportunity of yours. They are only creating. When you sack them, you have to create. That was Zuma asked them. That does it mean? I said Zuma, Malema. Does it mean when these people leave their businesses, you're asking them to leave, then you take over those businesses the next day? Because they run these businesses with their own money, so they are living with everything. So it has to take another level of, there's a creativity and other things. You have to even have the capital to be able to go into that. It doesn't mean your economic situation will quickly be transformed simply because you have sacked these people. Okay. Then you should find a way to address the problem. And I think the government, I don't understand why the government is still quiet. Because in any case, your tenure has ended. You are not seeking any renewed mandate. You understand? It's now a new person who would come. So just crack the whip, resolve the issue and go away with that credit that it was during your tenure that you nipped this problem in the bud.
Honorable, thank you very much. This is an this is an earlier comment on the first discussion we had. This is Maswala Pabli, who is aspiring executive member Yawaso's constituency of the National Democratic Congress. Says Dr. Kalisus Mahama has hit the nail right on the spot with his epistle. In fact, somewhere last year, I made the same post on my Facebook page. I stated clearly that without President Mahama, Professor Nana Jinopukwa led administration succeeding, no candidate can do anything in 2028. Therefore, everyone must work to make sure the administration succeeds, because when the administration succeeds, no matter who the party will present, we will win convincingly. Mr. Uzo.
Well, this matter has been around for a while, and we have made our input, and I still stand by my position. South Africa, they are just like Ghanaians. We have also gone through a whole lot of past deeds with the whites. We were colonized. Our brains were tortured. We could behave abnormally, just like how few South Africans are behaving there. But we have chosen not to behave in that manner. And that does not mean South Africans are radicals than Ghanaians. They come nowhere near the radicality of the Ghanaian. No, they don't come anywhere near the radicality of the Ghanaian. We started doing coup, we started boycotting Europeans. We fought to get our independence when they were still languishing in apartheid. So between Ghana and South Africa, these two countries who must be more violent. But we have chosen to be peaceful. They know what they are doing. They are so clear in their mind. So clear. Look, the leadership of those that are leading these Dudula or xenophobic attacks. I've listened to Jacinta, I've listened to Victoria. They want to even tell us that they are more educated intellectually. They are that high hall. They are more advanced than us. So how can you say? Look, if they are mad in their own sense, I think the madness would have been directed at the whites that would have suppressed or has been suppressing them. They know what they are doing. It is because anytime it comes, it is the usual diplomacy. 2019, diplomacy. They went away. 2023, diplomacy. 2024. So trust everything will be okay. I'm telling you. Wamkele. Is it not the boss of Africa Continental Free Trade Area? Is he not a South African? What is AU's agenda 2063? Are we not supposed to be integrated? Is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area not an integral part of it? What have they been doing about it? They are not doing anything. But we are pampering them. We are pampering South Africans. Because you see, whether we like it or not, it is human nature. There will be a Ghanaian that wants to travel out of this country. You can get all the employment, 100% employment. Jobs will be available. There will be that Ghanaian with that desire that I don't want to live in this country. It's normal. Because you see, Ghana has a population of 34 million. How many of our population is living outside this country? They are not 30% of our population. It tells you that more Ghanaians want to be here. And that in fact, in the midst of all the hardships, they are here. The young man who was attacked, who was surrounded by about 15 South Africans, humiliated, is he not back to Ghana? I saw a picture of him with the foreign affairs minister. Yeah. He's back. I don't think he wants to go back. In fact, I heard he himself on tape saying that it's now time to go and develop my country. Well, with what he has seen, it is not worth it. South Africa, I did part of my course there. As I'm saying that the blood is deliberate. It's deliberate. No, me, I will not take that position that they are afflicted. They are okay. But we are pampering them. I had this mark there. I was nearly killed in Pretoria. One fine Sunday morning, dashing down to go and buy food. Just walking by 3 minutes time, 4 people, they grabbed me inside the room. They held me. They were killing me. Money, money, money. Money is that you say money. I put my hands in my pocket. Then I had some rent. Take all. Fortunately, my phone was here. This was in 2013. I gave the phone to them. They left me. But the people that did that, they knew what they were about. It was money. So that is their character. But it tells you that they have a very weak governance structure. Because this borders on criminalities. So if borders on criminalities, why is the state not acting? All this we are talking about, the people who are leading it, are their videos not online? Don't we see them? So if we see them, how can the police, why can't the government catch the whip? Because it also feeds into the political narrative. Very soon they will be embarking on municipal elections. So they will allow everything to happen, all play out, so that they get their political votes and go their way. Other than that, this is never an issue. And I believe that there must be reprisals by way of commerce also, so that they know. If you don't want this in your country, you also don't want to. After all, they have beautiful companies here. You take over. I heard the senators in Nigeria now giving that signs. The Dudula must end and all of us will begin to think straight. You pull a gun, we will talk sense to ourselves. For how long can Ghana be at the receiving end? This AU we are going, it is only going to one of those things. The AU itself is disjointed. There is nothing beautiful about them. They are not serious. Everyone is thinking about themselves. Is Paul Biya going to take part in this AU meeting? You have 92 years. The other day I listened to an Indian woman who was running the commentary. That Paul Biya that is older than an atomic bomb. It's older than an atomic bomb is going to be in this meeting. And where do you think Africa, the headway will make? It's not going to happen. But you see, it sometimes saddens me. Our forebears, they were highly educated. And that is why a subject matter like history must be taken serious. Of late, when your child comes to the house, even the history, the kind of, the syllabus, it's nothing to write home about. You understand? As for secondary school, it's even it's few that learns history. Because you see, there is a reason why Africa occupies the juiciest part of the world. We have all the resources. It didn't come by chance. It was not a fluke. Our forebears fought and got the better part of the world. What we are now missing is history, our history. So that's South Africa. Then you must even remind them, why do they think that of the 54 countries, only them that do not have a proper name? Is South Africa a name? La Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast. Because if you are in Morocco, Ghana is south of Africa. But you are not getting the point. Look at the map. So it means it's all of us our country. That's why they don't have a name. We are all in southern part of Africa. Not to even talk about the contribution from other African countries. And having contributed all this to liberate you people, if you turn around and tell us that go back to your country. To which country? We are Africans. The last time a tourist who was there being attacked by one of the leaders. He said, my friend, speak English. He said, who are you? You are from Nigeria. I said, no, I'm a Malawian. The guy nearly slapped him. When he said that, the guy started running. I said, so you people, you know what you're doing. It will only take people who man up and face them for them to understand the government is failing. And indeed, the government of South Africa is failing, and it will go against them, because what they are doing is that tomorrow when the Afrikaners take over the country, which is going to be very soon, because in the last elections, can you imagine now ANC is ruling because they are in alliance with DA? It's just like in the future they will say maybe NDC is ruling with the collaboration from the MPP. Next time they will lose the elections and DA will take over. Once DA takes over, it means the Afrikaners have taken over. And I will be very glad they sack all the blacks and we'll see which country they will go. All of us learned how to sing Sarafina. You remember that song? Sarafina, that we will be crying, not knowing we were crying for the wrong people.
We're not crying for the wrong people.
Oh, a lot of them are. But what is happening? Are you happy with it? We started buying Lucky Dube's songs because all fed into the struggle. I just told you the contribution from the Methodist Church. A lot of people. Gonto Sizwe, the ANC itself, that political party, the Gonto, the armed wing, was virtually financed by African leaders and African countries. They have forgotten all about all of this. By the way, if the jobs were available, why didn't they occupy it before the foreigner got there? There wasn't any job. And if you are living in the South African economy with all the infrastructure, go to South Africa, you hardly see any rough road. I don't know whether you saw some, but I didn't see. You don't want to thrive in such an economy. You want to go and live where? So let them spoil themselves and let Africa rise up against them. It advantages Ghana. All that it means is that Ghana must improve on its infrastructure. Once we improve on our infrastructure and they continue to engage themselves in this radicalism and stuff, tourism or tourists will come to this country. Our economy will be boosted. And the time they will get these tourists back to their countries, it will be centuries. So it's over to them. But me, I'm not in for this always diplomats will talk about it. They go back, they do it openly. They even warn. They will give you prior notice that we will come and attack you today. Don't open shops. Gold Fish is here. Anglo Gold is here. Making more money than we. What are we doing about it? So let me end here. Your time is not your friend. I'll give it back to you.
Thank you. Thank you. Just a few comments. This is PS. Nana PS Yosanto says, I shudder to say that the so-called upheavals in the NDC are nothing but shifting away from the principles on which the NDC was founded. Leaders in NDC emerged, not wished, neither struggled for. That's a comment coming from him. Then a few on the discussion we're having currently. There's Eric Okusepeno says, and my question is, how can African unity be achieved with this xenophobia play out in South Africa? The current Gen Z's generation in South Africa do not know how they were liberated from apartheid. Zako Bispo is also joining us. I'm of the opinion that what is happening in South Africa is inuring to the advantage of the government. If not, why for all these years the authorities failed to act? They are happy with the attacks on Africans. Those attacks could have been directed to the government if it's not for the blacks. Why are they not attacking white-colored people? I think retaliation by the entire African continent is a solution. We cannot sit down for our people to be subjected to such attacks. Then there's Nilate, who says, apart from Julius Malema, who came out openly to condemn the xenophobia in South Africa, most of the dishonest politicians who have failed their citizens are in support of what is going on. In fact, South African president himself has spoken about this and has spoken about their commitment to solving it. Whether we are seeing that commitment in action is another issue. Mr. Pratt.
Well, first of all, I'd like to commend Honorable Okudato Ablakwa for taking the initiative to put this matter before the AU Heads of States meeting and Foreign Ministers meeting for a discussion. I commend the Honorable Okudato Ablakwa because he could have behaved like other African leaders who are stoking the fires, ignorantly stoking the fires. There is no doubt at all that Africa as presently constituted cannot make any mileage. the unity of Africa is crucial to our survival. You understand? So no matter what happens, we should make the effort to preserve our unity, to preserve what we have today, and to move forward into greater unity. And that is why the approach taken by the Honorable Okudzeto Ablakwa is the best approach as far as I'm concerned. And I like to salute him for that. Now, having said that, I visit South Africa on a regular basis. I mean, every year, I visit South Africa 3 to 4 times every year. And therefore, I suspect that I know what I'm talking about. In fact, on my last visit to South Africa, I spoke at the Forge. The Forge is a place where people come and they exchange intellectual ideas and so on. And when I spoke, and everybody, I was advertised as coming from Ghana, the Forge was full. There were workers there, there were trade unionists, there were politicians. The Forge was full. And the reception that I had in the Forge in Johannesburg, downtown Johannesburg, all the way to Bella Bella and so on. I behaved decently. Yes, there is growing xenophobia in South Africa. But it is not all South Africans who are involved in this growing xenophobia. It's a small band of people. Small band of people. In fact, on one of my visits to South Africa, this group that you mentioned, which is at the heart of the xenophobic movement, was organizing a demonstration in Johannesburg. They were counted by the Shack Dwellers Association. The Shack Dwellers Association mobilized to confront them, and they had to run away. So don't let us create the impression that the whole of the South African society is xenophobic. You understand? It is not. It's just a small group of people. I know as a fact that if you take one of the largest trade unions in South Africa, NUMSA, it is fighting xenophobia. Vigorously fighting xenophobia. If you take the Communist Party of South Africa, which is a partner of the ANC in government and so on, it is fighting xenophobia. COSATU is fighting xenophobia and so on. So there are many organizations within South Africa itself which are fighting xenophobia, and it's a small band of people who are pushing this xenophobic agenda. Now, I hear some of our countrymen and so on, I hear some of the Nigerian senators and so on say that they have regretted for fighting against apartheid. And that is sad. You see, we didn't fight against apartheid for some people. The fight against apartheid was for all of us as Africans and people of African descent. Apartheid was a philosophy which created a hierarchy of human beings based on color. And we Africans of black skin were at the bottom of this hierarchy. So to fight against apartheid as a black person is not to fight for somebody, but to fight for yourself. To fight for a system, a world order in which equality is guaranteed. And that's why we fought against apartheid. It is for the same reason that today we stand with the people of Palestine. Because the Israeli colonial occupation is based on an apartheid formula. It's racist. It's the worst form of racism which is being practiced in Israel today. So that's an important point to make. Now, we need to ask a very simple question. Where is this xenophobia coming from? What is the motive force of this xenophobic movement in South Africa? And you see, for me, the answer is very simple. We didn't finish fighting apartheid. We did not completely conquer apartheid. So the xenophobia which is finding expression in South Africa can be described as the remnant of the apartheid system, or the effect of the apartheid system which messed up with the minds of some of the people, especially the lumping proletariat in South Africa. You understand? Because it does not make sense that today as we sit here, still about 80% of the land in South Africa is owned by white settlers. And this band of reckless, misguided people are not attacking white settlers, they are attacking Africans, people who look like them and so on. 80% of the land in South Africa is still in white settler hands. So how do you explain the xenophobic attacks? And I think it was Nino who made this point. You see, under apartheid, the apartheid system itself sought to create a division between free Africa and South Africa. And the educational system, its propaganda, everything was geared at making the South African black feel privileged and better than the Ghanaian, the Nigerian, and so on. Okay? Now, why did they do that? They did that in order to sow seeds of hatred, in order to prevent this unity that we need to achieve. The whole educational system created the impression that Africans outside South Africa were barbarians and so on, and that Africans outside South Africa were living horrible lives because whites were not ruling them. And we have not overcome that psychological problem which was sowed by apartheid. Okay. Now, you will be surprised. Those leading the xenophobic attacks, those who are actually wielding the machetes and so on, you think they know that there's a company called MTN who is operating in Ghana and Nigeria and so on? They don't know. They don't know that their shopping malls are all over Africa and so on. They don't know. You understand? They don't even understand their own situation. Listen, these uneducated, unemployed people who are living in the shacks and so on, they see a Nigerian, he's probably a medical specialist and has come there to work, and he's driving a beautiful car, lives in a beautiful house and so on. Nigerian, how can a Nigerian live so well? Why are South Africans not getting this job? They cannot even address their minds to the fact that to be a surgeon specialist, you have to go through some discipline. So that mechanic who is welding the machete, if the surgeon specialist, Nigerian surgeon specialist leave, can he become a surgeon specialist? He cannot. He's not educated, doesn't have the qualification, but he doesn't. The problem we have. Now, if you visit the shanty towns in South Africa, in Ghana, we say that Nima is our slum. Said Nima is our slum, no be so. Nima Ashama, so. If you compare Nima to the shanty towns in Joburg and Cape Town and so on, Nima is Shanghai. I'm telling you. Yes. Nima is Shanghai. At least Nima, they have pipe-borne water, they have electricity, they live in block buildings and so on. In the shanty towns in South Africa, they live in zinc houses. They don't have toilets, they don't have running water, they don't have electricity, there are no roads, nothing. You understand? So they live in inhuman conditions. Clearly inhuman conditions. They have no access to medical care, nothing, no jobs and so on. So the people there are angry people, and they have to be angry. You know, these are completely dispossessed. These are the worst exploited people I have found on the African continent. Completely exploited. They have nothing. They have no access to schools, nothing. And South Africa is not like Ghana or even Nigeria. South Africa is supposed to be a very advanced industrial society. So if people in South Africa are living like this, they have a right to be angry. Besides, after the so-called defeat of apartheid, and I don't believe that apartheid was defeated, but after the so-called defeat of apartheid, what has been the experiences? You remember the massacre at the Marikana mine? Yes. Worse than the Sharpeville massacre committed under the ANC and so on. So these are all the things that have led to this frustration. Now, the people who are engaged in this xenophobic condition, who are pushing this xenophobic agenda, through no fault of theirs, they cannot understand that it's the social and economic system South Africa is running which is producing the unemployment and the deprivation. Strictly speaking, and I argue this all the time, apartheid is a subset of capitalism. It's the worst form, one of the worst forms of capitalism. And that is what is creating the unemployment, that is what is creating the desperation and so on. But you see, if the people get to know the real cause of their underdevelopment, poverty and suffering, there will be a revolution in South Africa. So the system itself diverts attention from the real problem, which is capitalism. You understand? And then focuses attention on Nigeria, Ghana, and so on. Now, what do we have to do now? What do we have to do now? Some of the problems have been caused already. The compromises that Mandela made in order to assume power is what we are paying for today. The unprincipled nature of the leadership of the ANC and so on is what we are paying for today. So we must constantly remind ourselves that in all of these political struggles and so on, we need to be principled. Otherwise, these are the results we are likely to get. We need to be principled. We must also begin to express solidarity with the most disadvantaged sections of the South African society. For example, members of the SAC Dwellers Association. Over the last 5 years, if I'm not exaggerating, about 30 of their leaders have been executed, have been killed by a free South African police force. You understand? And I believe that we should express full solidarity with them. You understand? You see, today, if you look at South Africa, some things are happening which should be worrying for all of us as Africans. How come that a government led by Cyril Ramaphosa, who was a leader of the ANC, today, 2028, how come that it has appointed an apartheid minister? No, an apartheid minister as South Africa's ambassador to the United States of America. How come? Because they are falling over themselves to please Donald Trump, to show Trump that they are not racist. You understand? So what's Cyril Ramaphosa's answer is to appoint an apartheid-era minister, a South African ambassador to the United States. That's not it. When he was visiting the White House, he deliberately selected white rugby players and so on and put them on his delegation in order to satisfy Donald Trump. This is Cyril Ramaphosa. You know, there are some things that when I say, my South African friends get a bit uncomfortable. But there are things that sometimes the current reality forces us to say. You see, Cyril Ramaphosa is one of the richest people in South Africa. How How did he become so rich? Through the so-called Black Empowerment Program. So the Black Empowerment Program became a machinery for the fabulous enrichment of black political leaders rather than the empowerment of the black population in Soweto and other places. You understand? Fantastic. And you said that, and I fully agree with you. You understand? So, but you see, history sometimes reveals a lot. Who is Cyril Ramaphosa? Cyril Ramaphosa is the son of an apartheid police officer. Don't forget it. He is the son of an apartheid police officer. His father was paid to entrench apartheid. He may have liberated himself. We are all not like our parents. You understand? You can be different from your parents and so on. But the psychology of it is important. You know, so for many working people in South Africa, they haven't gone far. Today, as we speak here, there are still communities in South Africa that are whites only. Whites only. If you go to Bella Bella, for example, and you see any black person in Bella Bella, he's either a student or worker in the Nkrumah school and therefore liberated, or is a driver, a cook, or a farmhand. And you see the land that these whites own and so on, and the impunity of the white community and so on. So rather than regret for fighting against apartheid, I think we should realize that the battle against apartheid is not over, and that we must continue that battle against apartheid until final victory. It is only when we have achieved final victory over apartheid that we can begin to live with our brothers, our sisters, comrades in South Africa as people who share a common destiny and who have a common vision of a united Africa under the banner of socialism. That's the only way forward.
No, actually, that was what Nkrumah actually said. He is speaking Nkrumah's language. Yes. Nkrumah's charge to us goes beyond. Yeah.
The 1945 agenda, which was adopted in Manchester by all African leaders, that is the program it laid for us, including Jomo Kenyatta, Nyerere, Marcus Garvey, Du Bois, and others. When they met in 1945, this is the agenda they gave us to pursue.
But when they go forward, they did otherwise.
Yeah.
Not exactly.
Well, thank you. And thank you also very much for making time to join us on the Mother of All Talk shows today. Our time is up. Okay, so I understand, is it tomorrow that will be his birthday? Okay, so this is from my producer. Tomorrow is the birthday of the Honorable Minister for Lands and Natural Resources, Honorable Emmanuel Ama Kofibua.
As for him, you can't make bad comments.
Tomorrow is his birthday.
I was going to say that this birthday
I need this one.
Birthday is what?
Tomorrow.
The birthday is tomorrow.
Tomorrow is the birthday. Yes. Happy birthday.
He's such a gentleman that
yes.
I'm able to make.
Yes.
The comments are.
But what is the party? That's the point.
As for him, mostly if you want to go to his party, you have to travel all the way to Elembele. So if you are interested, you have to follow him. Anyway, happy birthday in advance to him, and also happy birthday to Susie Akusika Sijope Afako Tete. Very long name, Akusika. Happy birthday to you. And thank you very much for joining us on the show today and for making time to follow us. Don't forget, we are live on Pan-African Television, we are live on Radio Gold, and many other affiliate stations across the country, also live on social media. Big thank you to Comrade Kwesi Pratt Jr., who is General Secretary of Socialist Movement of Ghana. I always say that there are things that only he can say. He does not understand. He does not understand why we do not have that, because you've earned the right to say some of those things. You put it in a context that even the people who are involved will listen to, because of the way you say it and the background with which you give us. So it's always educative listening to him. And a big thank you to Ninoy Hansen Naughty. I pulled him out and he agreed. He's a member of parliament for Temasek. It will be fantastic. I mean, every Saturday. Fantastic to, yes. And of course, it was nice to have the member of parliament for END, Abdul Fattah Al-Hassan. And as always, a pleasure to see the man of the moment, Solomon Owusu, who is Director of Communications of the United Party. I'm telling you. I'm telling you. Well, I am Sena Nombo. We'll see you same time next week in another edition of the show. A big thank you to those who work behind the scenes on the show, Alberta Sewa Ado, who is in charge of MCR, of course, sound, Emmanuel Ose, popularly known as TT, producers, Tijani Badamasi and Latifa Adam. We'll see you same time next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend and have a fruitful week.
Into the land of freedom, he's the Redeemer.